This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody. Nailed it. Joined as always by our Barth. That's a fit. That's a match. No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm going to ask you two questions about this.
Yep.
Well, one question and then one series of questions. Is Tet McMillan slow?
Yes.
I disagree. I just don't think he's fast.
Oh, yeah? A wise guy, eh?
22.
That was a classic semantics argument. And I think today is going to be an even classicer semantics. Is classicer a word? I'm going.
I don't think so.
Classicer semantics argument. What a day. I mean, this is shaping up to be a heck of a news day here on March 26th in a
Seriously.
random off-season podcast. Evan Lazar, Alex Barth, Patriots Catch-22 with you for the next couple of hours here. I'm sure we'll have plenty of calls, plenty of emails. There's a lot to discuss. It's exciting. Some exciting news for the Patriots last night, reportedly exciting news for the Patriots last night. So we'll get to Stefon Diggs here at the top of the show. We'll get to the arm length measurement heard around the world at LSU down in Baton Rouge, apparently, this morning. And we'll get to all of it here with you guys for the next 2 hours, which is going to be fun. So, hey, Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buyatoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go places. And easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. All right. I want to start with Stefon Diggs.
Yes.
That's the tangible news that we have today. Is that the Patriots, reportedly the tangible reported news that we have today is that last night the Patriots have agreed to terms, reportedly, with free agent wide receiver Stefon Diggs. It is a 3-year deal worth, reportedly, a $69 million in maximum value. About $26 million guaranteed are the numbers that Adam Schefter has reported as of right now. So there's a lot to unpack with this Diggs news. As always with this show, there's a draft angle to everything, so we'll get to that. Yeah. But I think just off the top, the overall reaction for me to the Diggs news is a couple things. One, I just like the fact that they're taking a little bit of risk on with a player. I think sometimes they tend to steer more towards deals where they won the deal. You know, that it's a smart deal for the team, and it's a deal that doesn't come with as many potential issues or risks. And I'm not talking about his character, his locker room makeup. I'm not worried about that kind of stuff, but the knee injury is the knee injury. And I don't want to keep on bringing it up over and over again. So we can just right off the top here say, with this caveat, he is coming off a torn ACL. He suffered a torn ACL last October, late October of 2024, and the reports are optimistic. I think Schefter reported last night that he's trending or on track to play week 1. That seems very optimistic. We'll see. That would be great news, but we'll see. But in general, it got to the point in free agency for the Patriots, Alex, where it just felt like they had to do something like this at wide receiver. They had to take a chance on a Stefon Diggs, an Amari Cooper, a Keenan Allen, one of these receivers that's on the wrong side of 30 that might have some flags to him, might have some issues with him, but the ceiling of the player is so high, and what he could bring to your room is just so positive that as a team like the Patriots that needs talent on the offensive side of the ball, needs playmaking on the offensive side of the ball, it was time to take a risk like this. It was time to take a swing.
Yeah, and we had talked about this even when signed with the Seahawks. Cooper Kupp was still available.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm so engrossed in arm length.
So much arm length.
I know. Even when Cooper Kupp was available, we talked about this. Like, they needed to take a chance. And this isn't a great signing in the sense that, you know, you go back to the beginning of the offseason and Stefon Diggs was this big prize, right? There was T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, et cetera, et cetera. But for where things got once those guys came off the board, like you said, they needed to take a shot. If you're taking a shot, I'm all for upside at this point. And whether it be Kupp, whether it be Amari Cooper, whether it be, you know, some of these other guys that have moved. I think Devontae Adams is maybe the one other guy you argue just because he's healthy, but Diggs has as much, if not more, upside than anybody.
Yeah.
And that was available. So we'll see where he's at with the knee. The health is the biggest concern for me, not the off-field stuff. I think that's very overblown. But They needed to take a swing, and they took a swing. And if it works out, you have a number one wide receiver.
Right.
Diggs has been one of the most underappreciated players in the league for the last 5 years, and I think he'd really have an opportunity to shine here if he's healthy. If it doesn't work out, you talked about the winning the deal thing. It's a little pricey, but like, don't look at that $69 million number. That's not the number that matters.
Yeah.
If he gets near that number, it's worth it. Like, because so much of that is incentive based. If he's actually putting up the numbers to earn that, great. Awesome. Nobody's going to think twice about it. The real number is the $26 million. That's over 3 years. My guess, we haven't seen the details yet. My guess is that $26 million is really confined to the first 2 years. So they'll take a little bit of a hit, but nothing crippling if Diggs' knee doesn't hold up.
I'm a little surprised they added the third year, but my take on this last week, I wanted them to add the second year.
Yeah.
Because if it works out, and then you have another year removed from the ACL in 2026, it could work. You could really have 2 very, very good years of Stefon Diggs.
Now you really tap into it.
We always hear you bounce back the second year a little bit better off the ACL. So if he comes in this year, has a nice season with Drake May, then in 2026 you might even get an even better version of Stefon Diggs. So I like the fact that they have some team control on the player for a couple of years. A 1-year deal made a lot of sense for Diggs. You know, come in, get a 1-year deal, reset your market, show that you can still play. That made a lot of sense for Diggs, but I thought that it was better for the team, for the Patriots, to get some term on the player so that you have him if it does hit.
Well, it's
and it
also,
does work out.
And look, if Diggs goes absolutely nuts, right? If he comes back and he's the best receiver in football for the last however many weeks of the season he plays, he can always ask for a new contract, right? That's on the table.
Sure.
And again, if you're the Patriots, if that's what happens, great. You got unbelievable wide receiver play.
Yeah.
So I just don't. I guess that I don't think the downside is there in signing him. There is a downside in it, in that he's not healthy, so that is a worry. And within that, he's not going to be on the field with Drake May in the spring, in the summer, and they're going to have to really play catch-up to get on the same page, and it might take them a couple weeks to get into it. But that's not a massive risk for the team. If anything, you can look at the other side of that and say, well, now there's more reps for the young guys in camp, and you have the first 4 or 5 weeks, like there was last year with Kendrick Bourne, to continue battling it out and figuring out who's going to win those spots. So I just... Look, it would have been better if they could have added a guy that had a bit higher of a floor, or a higher floor, who wasn't hurt. Obviously, this isn't the best case scenario for the terms of the offseason, but we kind of saw this last year when they missed out on the initial wave. There was just nothing.
Yeah.
And this is, Mike Vrabel talked about the combine. You don't have plan A, you got to go to plan B. You got to go to plan C. You got to adjust. You can't just miss out on what you want and walk home with your head down, right? You still have to be able to adjust and find ways to work, and that's what they did here. I don't think Diggs was probably at the top of their list coming into the offseason, but I think he was on their list. Their priorities were elsewhere, right? We know they were in on Chris Godwin.
Yep.
And, from there, it was this focus on defense, and Milton Williams gets a lot of money and all that, but they were able to adjust and come back, and they got a guy that can be an answer at that position in the short term. I still think we're doing wide receivers in the first round in the draft next year. Diggs isn't a long-term answer, but you get Drake May, somebody for this year, that's certainly not nothing.
Yeah, the last big picture thought, then I want to get into some of the minutia about his role and fit with McDaniels and all that stuff. The proof of concept thing sticks out to me as well in a couple different angles. You have, like you just said, a proven commodity at receiver that elevates the talent level of the offense to the point where Drake May isn't swimming upstream as much, right? He's got some help now. He's got a guy that he can rely on, a guy that has a proven resume in the NFL, that is a very good route runner, that's a very good possession receiver, that's caught 100 passes, was it 6 straight years, 1,000-yard receiver, and I think it was 4 with 100 catches, something like that. And so you have a lot of that, and I think that that's going to help down the line. Like, let's say this does work out with Stefon Diggs, and now in 2026, the Patriots are a little bit more desirable. They're a little bit more desirable. They have a 1B or a very good 2 in Stefon Diggs. Now do they land that big fish? Do they land a T. Higgins level talent right at that position to be a true number 1 elite receiver? Do they draft somebody? And now all of a sudden at the combine, Elliot Wolf mentioned that they thought they put too much on Jalen Polk's plate, that they thought he kind of had the pressure of being the savior.
Right. And I think he was right, by the way, in that.
Now, if you draft somebody, whether it's first round, second round, third round, whenever, when you add that rookie in, that rookie is not expected to come in and save the day, right? He's expected to be a running mate with Stefon Diggs, not the savior of the offense. I think there's something to be said for that it takes some of the pressure off of some of the younger receivers to come in here and all of a sudden be these bona fide stars, to be that guy for the Patriots, to be that true number one guy for New England. The other angle of it to me as well, along with all these other things, is just when I look at their offense right now and I look at their depth chart offensively, I'm starting to feel pretty good about the ingredients that they're giving Josh McDaniels. Now, we're going to talk about arm lengths ad nauseum here in a minute.
Yes, we are.
And we're going to talk about left tackles here in a minute. And to me, when I look at their depth chart, they're a left tackle away from being operational on offense. I'm not saying they're going to be top 5 on offense. I'm not going to say they're going to be top 10. I'm not going to put those qualifiers in there, but
representative.
They are going to be up and running on that side of the ball. They're going to have a playmaker in Diggs that they can move around, that they can use in different ways, that they can get open, that they can feed the rock to in a high volume role. They have a young quarterback that we all feel pretty good about. If they just have a representable offensive line with a left tackle that can just play the position at an NFL level, you start to feel good about a really good offensive coordinator in Josh McDaniels making that thing hum, like making all those pieces work. So it's all positive right now, I believe, with Stefon Diggs and this move. I don't really see a ton of downside to the point of risk for the team. Like, yes, there's downside that he doesn't bounce back from the injury and he's not the same player. That downside obviously exists, but the risk in terms of long-term effect on the cap or on the cash or any of those different things, I just don't think that it's really going to come back to bite them if he's not the old Stefon Diggs. If he's not the old Stefon Diggs, you move on. You rip up the last 2 years and you move on.
It's a very manageable cap hit in 2026, and I would bet there's no dead money in 2027.
Okay, so just to get into some more of the minutia about this with Diggs, the other thing that I find interesting is how exactly he's going to be deployed in Josh McDaniels' offense. So Diggs has always been a very versatile receiver. Can play inside, can play outside, can play the X, can play the Z, can play the slot. You can move him around all over the place. In Houston, his usage changed slightly. And that obviously stems from Nico Collins being really their outside guy with the Texans and being their X receiver. So he played a lot more in the slot. He played a lot more in the Z or away from press coverage. And really, I think the more important thing is that he was more of a chain mover in that offense. He was not a big play guy for that offense. He was the guy that on 3rd and 6 was getting them 7 yards. His career low in average air yards per target was last season. He only averaged 8.3 yards per target through the air. It was 2 yards less than his last season in Buffalo. So that's a pretty big difference. That's a really, really big difference. So what he went from in Buffalo was obviously the guy, but also a guy that was running by people and making big plays all over the field with Josh Allen. What he went to in Houston was much more of a chain mover, possession receiver, whatever you want to call it. And when I look at McDaniels and his history, especially with those inside receivers, not all inside receivers are slots. All of them are created equal. But guys that play inside the formation for the most part, that's the high volume role in Josh McDaniels' offense. The high volume role is the Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, Troy Brown, Deion Branch
inside guy
role, right?
Yeah.
So I'm expecting them to put Stefon Diggs in that role. And it might not look exactly like it did with Julian Edelman. Like, he might not be running, juke routes and, quick hitters and quick changes of directions and things like that. It might be its own iteration of that. But moving Diggs around, hunting matchups for Diggs, getting him into the middle of the formation where he can go up against some linebackers and safeties on occasion, using him in motion, using him out of stacks, 2 receiver stacks, 3 receiver bunch alignments, everything that you can do, all those bells and whistles that McDaniels uses to get receivers open and get them favorable opportunities down the field to get open. That to me is going to be Stefon Diggs. So I'm sure he'll play some on the outside. No doubt about that. Maybe there are opportunities where they like him in certain matchups at the X, playing on the backside of the coverage, one-on-one. But I really look at him as an engine of the offense type player within this offense. And if you're going to get the most out of him, I think he plays in that high volume inside receiver role that we've seen McDaniels have everywhere he goes. It was Jacoby Myers at the end here. Edelman obviously passed the torch to Myers. Now I believe it's going to be Stefon Diggs. I think that's good. That being said, if I just had to say, the one, not flaw, but the one thing that I would look at with that, they're still kind of missing that prototypical X in my mind. The true guy that can play on the outside consistently, beat backside coverage, beat one-on-one coverage consistently, and ideally someone that has some size and some speed. Like, they don't really have a ton of that right now. If you figure that it's going to be Diggs, Pop Douglas, and then a competition probably at X between Matt Collins, Kayshon Boutte, maybe Javon Baker gets in there, rookie, Hunter Henry. Like, that's going to be sort of your core group. You could use some speed down the field and you could use some size, but I'm really intrigued by the idea of Diggs playing a little bit more as like a movable chess piece in this McDaniels offense, like he's used those receivers I've mentioned in the past, versus this guy's just going to play outside. He's going to play 70 times a game and go one-on-one all game long. I just like the idea of him moving around a little bit more.
No, there's definitely versatility there. I wonder if they try to reroute some of the traditional inside stuff to an outside position where Diggs is kind of running some of those slot assignments, but he's doing so from an outside alignment.
Yeah.
And now we're really...
Well, they could do that from like a condensed formation, especially. So that's what they did a lot in Houston. So you run condensed splits, which means that your receivers, your outside receiver, are actually inside the numbers.
Yeah.
Versus your outside receiver being on the numbers or even in a really exaggerated wide split outside the numbers. So a lot of these new offenses, especially, the McVay, Shanahan tree, a lot of those offenses run in condensed formations, and that allows you to have the freedom, all the space, right, to run into the sideline versus being, pinned up against the sideline.
Yeah, so I wonder if there's a way to do some of that. But I think that the downfield threat, the speed is obviously going to be the question coming off the ACL.
Yeah.
Like you talked about, how helpful he can be there. But he's one of these guys that as he's gotten older, he's gotten a lot craftier, right? He has a better understanding of the game, what's going on, things like that. And he can kind of mentally get himself open, even if he's not the most explosive player anymore. So I'm looking forward to see how McDaniels uses him. I don't know if you want to get into what this means for the draft as kind of a transition, because to me, this doesn't change anything for them at the top of the draft.
No.
If it changes anything draft approach-wise for me, it's like taking that guy between 40 and between, call it 50 and 150, who's just going to kind of be in that middle mix with Boutte and Polk and Baker and Bourne. I'm good there. I know you've said you'd like to kind of bring as many guys into camp as possible, but let the guys you have compete. You have equal players, Riz. At 69, at 77, you can get maybe a starting guard, or you can get a good running back, or you can get a safety, or you can get a guy that is going to make an impact right away versus, we're not even sure, because you look at this draft, it's similar player to Jalen Polk, right?
Yeah.
So where I was at with quarterbacks last year is kind of where I'm at with receivers now. Take either guy is going to be 1-2 on the depth chart, or a true project round 6 or 7. I don't really have any need for the guys in the middle. But it doesn't change anything at the top, because I think Diggs is a bridge. 2, even in the shorter term, I think Diggs and Hunter, and I'm still drafting Hunter as a receiver.
Yeah.
Diggs and Hunter can probably play off each other well. And
really well.
If you're coming out in 11 with Diggs, Hunter, and Pop, that's a real group.
Yeah.
That's a real legit group. So that's where I'm kind of, not just Diggs in his own, because we're doing this exercise last night, and this is in the wake, right, of the Giants signing Russell Wilson, which feels like it happened 10 years ago.
Yeah,
and
we'll
that got everybody all hot and bothered about
Sure did.
Travis Hunter.
Sure
so
did.
I'm looking through it in the lens last night. I wasn't even doing just the Diggs stuff, really. It was, all right, so you're going to have Diggs as kind of like a small, shiftier X.
Yeah.
You're going to have Hunter in the Z probably doing stuff over the middle, and you're going to have Pop stretching the field vertically from the slot or something like that. Like, that's how I was looking at, because if you put those three together, I think McDaniels, he's going to get in the lab. He's going to have a lot of fun if you give him those three. And then it's, Booty or Polk or Bourne kind of rounding out the depth chart as your fourth and fifth guy. Mac Hollins as your depth receivers.
Yeah, it doesn't change anything at the top of the draft in terms of who you're targeting. Like, if Travis Hunter is there, you're still taking Travis Hunter. I think the biggest thing, though, to me, again, is I don't want to get too caught up on the speed thing. I know I tend to do that, and I also just don't want to. If you think Ted McMillan's a better football player, then you should draft Ted McMillan. Right? Yeah. You shouldn't go ahead and draft. Matthew Golden just because he's faster.
Well, I would even say, does this make McMillan more of a fit? Because now you have that true X, and now Diggs is your Z, or Pop's your Z, Diggs your slot, whatever, however you want to divvy that up. But
X, Y, Z,
that's a A, B, C, D. That's a lot more. That would be the traditional, right?
Right.
If you add Ted McMillan to it.
So my fear with that, though, and again, I don't want to harp too much on it.
With that being receiver at 4, that being McMillan specifically.
Okay. I think you're really slow. I think you're slow in terms of being able to stretch the field vertically. I don't know if Diggs is that guy anymore. Now, maybe they just used him differently in Houston, and he's going to go back to being more of a vertical threat like he was in Buffalo. But in Houston, like I mentioned, the air yards per target, the roll, the slot usage, all that increase, and he really turned into a first and second level receiver. He was a short and intermediate guy. And I want to put that out there because I want to make sure that the listeners and everybody understand who they're getting. They are not getting a burner over that's going to separate over the top. That's not his game.
What about Pop as the field stretcher from the inside? Pop's fast. Pop has speed.
Pop has speed. You always worry about guys with Pop in terms of stretching the field vertically is catch radius and ability to win at the catch point when it is contested.
I contested catch, maybe not. He's got pretty good ball skills, though. He's made some great catches, falling to the ground or
that's true.
Turning his shoulder. So you're not throwing him jump balls, but if you're worried about jump balls, you're going size over speed anyway. The idea is he's running past people, and that's how he's stretching the field.
Yeah, no, there's a possibility there. Travis Hunter to me and Stefon Diggs together, it starts to getting me a little hot in here, right? That right there is as good as it could get in terms of the Patriots. Those two guys are interchangeable. You can play them both at the X. You can play them both inside. You talk about play speed. Obviously Travis Hunter has plenty of that, plenty of downfield ball skills, plenty of play speed to stretch the field vertically. That would be a really tough group to cover. That would be a truly tough group to cover. With all three of those guys are separators. Now, different styles. Hunter's a separator because he's a great athlete. Diggs is a great route runner and a savvy, crafty route runner. That's how he separates. And then Pop is like the bursty, jitterbug. But they all separate at a high level, all three of them. Ted McMillan, I've had my reservations about his speed to begin with. Again, if they really feel like he's the best player at that position and they're going receiver at the top of the draft, I'm not going to sit here and say draft a guy you have a lesser grade on just because he ran a 4.29, a.k.a. Matthew Golden, right? I'm not going to harp on it. But I do think that you are still lacking in terms of down the field speed, especially from the outside. Ted can stretch the field in the middle. He runs the seam, runs a deep post from the slot, whatever. But when he plays on the outside, he has trouble pulling away from guys on the outside. And I don't know if Diggs is that guy anymore to do that. Pop's certainly not that guy to play outside and pull away from people. But it's an exciting combination, regardless, with all these options. Now, if we're talking draft, though, and obviously the Will Campbell stuff is out there, but when I look at this offense right now, I really feel as though left tackle is the one albatross in the room. Right? That's the one glaring hole that's staring at you. I still think they need more talent at receiver. I still think they need a younger receiver than Stefon Diggs that has some ceiling and some upside, certainly. But when I look at this offense right now, for 2025, if you get them a viable starting left tackle and you give that to McDaniels on top of what they already have on paper offensively, maybe you sprinkle in some spice, a running back in the middle rounds, something like that to add a little bit more juice to the offense in a different area of the field. Maybe it's a tight end, something like that. I think you're really cooking with gas.
So
I think you're really cooking with gas if you have a viable left side of the offensive
The problem
line.
is there's not many viable left tackles available.
Sure.
Tyron Smith, is the one in free agency, and that's even a maybe. Like, would he come here? Diggs signing probably helps. I wanted one more thing on Diggs, though, when it comes to rookie receivers, especially with a guy like Travis Hunter. How much do you put on Diggs being like a mentor for some of the younger guys?
Sure.
And doesn't he kind of feel like a more favorable mentor for a guy like Travis Hunter? Because those two, at least prime Diggs, he's not that player anymore, but prime Diggs played similarly to, I think, the way you're going to want Travis Hunter to play.
Absolutely. I mean, I love that. I love the fact that he can come in here, even mentor, although some of us, not me, but some people have given up on Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, but bringing in a guy like Stefon Diggs to mentor even those guys, I think, is important and can be valuable. So I look at across the board, just having somebody that you can look at and say, this guy's done this at an extremely high level. This is how he goes about his business. And I think when we talk about a lot of this mentor stuff, we're talking about really, like Monday through Saturday, right? Like, how does this guy go about his business? How does he train? How does he practice? How does he prepare? How does he watch tape? All these different types of things that go into being a professional receiver. When you have a guy like Diggs who has a routine that obviously works at a very, very high level, it's extremely beneficial to young players.
So I only have one real question about the Stefon Diggs signing I'm worried about. What number is he going to wear?
That's a fair question.
So Spillane has 14, which he wore in Minnesota and Buffalo.
Yeah.
He did wear one in Houston. He wore it in college. So you talk about mentoring. Jalen Polk
gives him one.
Right, start off on that. I'm going to give you one, and in exchange, you're going to teach me everything you know.
Teach me your ways, Yoda.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, that should be the trade-off, and then Polk gets like 16 or something.
So I like that. That's not bad. A couple other things about the draft before we get into Will Campbell of it all.
Yeah.
Just talking about day 2 receivers that would fit now with this offense. I'm going to go to the speed guys a little bit.
All right, you know what I'm going to ask you when you name them, but go ahead.
But I still like Jaden Higgins as a player, but I still feel the same way that I kind of feel about Ted McMillan. It just feels like you have a lot of guys that are going to try to win on slants and digs, right? Like, you can't have a whole offense of slants and digs. You have to have somebody else that can do something down the field at the third level. I don't think he's necessarily that guy either. I think he's more of what we talk about with Ted McMillan, like a souped up possession receiver. When I say souped up, I mean just a large possession receiver with Jaden Higgins. So you start to get into, Royals, right? I think is a good field stretcher. I don't know how you feel. We haven't really talked too much about him.
I'm okay on him. At that point, you're probably going to get him, back end of the third.
Yep.
Can you wait till the top of the fourth and take Kyle Williams at that point?
Sure. So Jalen Royals from Utah State is who we're talking about, who's a true burner. He's a true vertical threat. Doesn't necessarily have great size, but has great speed and has big plays all over his film at Utah State, but against good opponents as well. It's not all just against, was that the MAC or whatever, Mountain West?
Utah State? Yeah, Mountain West. Yeah, the MAC is like
Mountain
Great
West.
Lakes.
So that they don't, it's not all against, bad competition. He's a good player. I think he's got some speed. He's got some juice. I'm gonna bring up Isaiah Bond.
All right, fast and.
I'm going to bring up Isaiah
fast
Bond.
and.
But if you're looking at the way that this offense is built, like, they kind of just need fast.
But then go find whoever this year's Damiere Byrd is in free agency and sign that guy. You don't need to use a top 100 pick on that guy. If you're just looking for a guy, as you like to say, who's just going to run wind sprints back and forth to make sure the other team keeps 2 safeties back, you don't need to use a top 100 pick on that guy.
All right, fair enough. I don't know if he's truly an outside guy with Kyle Williams. I know he's picking up a lot of steam. He's a popular guy right now.
Yeah.
In the draft community, but Kyle Williams to me still feels undersized to be playing a lot.
If you just want a guy to run up and down,
but he's on the list.
You know who is still a free agent? You want somebody in that role?
Who's that?
Could we call it what do you want to call this role? I feel like Demir Bird's an undersell. Who else had it?
I don't know. I mean, like Philip Dorsett, I guess.
Who else?
That's all I got right now.
Nelson Aguilar.
Nelson Aguilar?
Still a free agent.
Okay, well, I don't think Nelson Aguilar has got the juice like he once did.
Philip Dorsett role is probably a better way to put it.
How do you feel about Savion Williams?
Oh, I was going to ask you about that.
Because it kind of makes sense now with this group. It does.
Yeah, but he's not. He's
got a little bit more receivers. Like, he gets all the Cordell Patterson comps for obvious reasons, but he's got a little bit more receiver skill, I would say, especially contested catch and like leaping ability.
Yeah, but I worry about
the
the hands. I guess you're not going to have him. You're not going to have him running a diverse route tree, so the route running doesn't matter as much.
Yep, he's going to run go ball, go ball.
Look,
go ball.
I really like. I was working on this take this week. You remember my take about Joe Milton last year? Like not the thing about 80 yards. That Joe Milton was the most interesting player in the draft.
Yeah.
Joe Milton was the most entertaining player in the draft. I think Savion Williams has that title this year. I think Savion Williams is the most entertaining player in this draft. But I just, and I know it's new staff, their history of developing wide receivers and all that, from where he's going to go, I think his success is as a gadget player. At that, if you're just looking for big and fast, and I'm doing Taekwon again, do you just go Dante Thornton?
So I was gonna get to him, but with Savion Williams really quickly, the one thing that stood out to me when I watched him is that he's a little bit more refined at the catch point than I was expecting. Right, like I was really expecting Cordell Patterson, who is really not a receiver. He's probably better as a running back, honestly.
Yeah,
Patterson. When you watch Savion Williams, you mentioned the drops. He has some really bad focus drops where like he's just open, the ball hits him on the hands, and for whatever reason he drops it. He's like he's like Marcus Smart. He makes the most ridiculous shots you've ever seen, now. And then when he has a freaking layup, he blows the bunny, right? Like that's Savion Williams. He is a really good down the field, high point, go get the ball type of receiver.
Well, he's also really good with the ball in his hands.
Yeah. And then when you throw him a slant and there's nobody within 5 yards of him, he'll just drop it, and you are left scratching.
I worry about that guy here, especially with a young quarterback. I just don't know that's. I really like him. I'm perfectly content watching him succeed somewhere else. If they pass on him and he goes somewhere else and he has success, I'm not going to fault them for it. That's a tough projection. All right, I'd be more like I'm more in the group of like I don't want to take away too much from your list, like Dante Thornton.
Yep.
I don't know, is Ty Felton on there?
Yep.
Chamari DK from Florida.
A little deep. Getting a little deep.
That's kind of where I'm taking a receiver, though.
So Dante Thornton's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, if they draft Dante Thornton, who ran like a 4.3, and his last name is Thornton, I didn't even think of you know what everybody's going to say, right? It's going to be automatic.
5'8", 205, 4.3 flat 40.
Oh, I didn't realize he was only 5'8".
Sorry, 6'5". I don't know what I was looking at.
6'5". Yeah. 5'8". What do you?
The hand size says 5/8. It's right below it.
I was so confused.
6'5". Okay, 6'5", 205, 4.3. Yeah, we're doing Thornton again.
No, we're not doing Thornton again. No, because he's bigger. He's bigger. He's built bigger than Taekwon Thornton
by a lot.
What do you mean by a ton? 200.
He doesn't look 205 though.
Okay, but if he's 190, he's still.
That's true. Okay, that's fair.
He's still.
He's got more mass on him
than Taekwon. Thornton though.
He also played at Oregon before he played at Tennessee.
Yeah, he plays fast. Like that's not just a 40 time. When you turn on the tape with him, he runs well. He's a true take the top off the defense kind of guy. Those are some of the names that I had on my list. If you're really looking for a specific type of receiver, again, if you're going in the first round, you're just taking the best receiver available. Like if it's Tet McMillan, it's Tet McMillan. You're just going with the best guy. But when you start to get down the board a little bit, if you want to be a little bit more picky about the skill set and making sure that it fits with what you have, Dante Thornton, like early on day 3, maybe. Like a couple years ago.
Sell me on that.
A couple years ago, they would have reached on him and taken him in the second round.
Right.
But
I don't need a wide receiver at like 69 or 77 or even 106. After that, it makes more sense. So again, Felton, Thornton. You're sleeping on Chamari DK.
Okay.
From Florida. I don't know if you've watched him at all.
No.
6'1", 196, 4.34. He's really good at beating press, getting down the field, getting open, contested catches. That's kind of it. Yeah. You're not going to run him underneath. He's not going to give you a lot after the catch. His hands aren't, he's not quite as bad as Savion Williams, but his hands aren't great. But he's going to go down the field and run fast and make plays on the football. So if you're just looking for somebody to do that, and you can get him probably at, you might be able to get him at 217, honestly.
Yeah.
They have a gap between 144 and 217. My guess is he'll go somewhere in there, but I also think they'll close that gap somehow.
I need somebody that can run a go. I need somebody that can run a post. And I need them to be able to do it very well. I need 2 routes.
I think that's pretty much all he can do, but
you got to do it at a high level. Like I'm not talking in no shade meant, but I don't think Kayshon Boutte and Javon Baker have proven that they can do that at a truly high level. Maybe Boutte had a nice season last year. I don't mean to crap on Boutte. I know there's a lot of Boutte fans out there, and he had a nice season last year. So maybe he's the answer. Like maybe he's the guy that ends up being that true outside guy that can win on a deep route. Maybe he is.
Yeah.
I would like to get somebody else in here to at least compete for that.
Do you
role.
want the Lance Zierlein on DK? Because I think this is exactly what you're describing.
Sure.
Niche receiver with average hands but good early speed to bypass mad coverage. Gives life to the vertical game. Second and third level receiver whose routes have the energy of a youngster on a playground with all gas and no brakes. He's more of a field stretcher than a volume option, but his talent for opening deep windows could appeal to teams in need of speed.
So you put him.
That's like exactly the guy you're talking about.
Yeah,
you can get him so much later.
You put him or Dante Thornton
Yeah.
in a competition with Kayshon Boutte and Javon Baker to be that developmental X, right?
Yep.
To be that high upside developmental X. I don't hate it.
I don't want them taking that guy in the top 100
Agreed.
where they can address other needs.
Agree, because frankly, the guys that are best in the top 100 are not that guy, right? It's Jalen Noel. It's, guys that
there's
really,
a couple,
I don't.
Savion Williams would be in there.
Yep.
Isaiah Bond, Torrey Horton.
Are those guys going top 100?
Torrey Horton's fringe. Isaiah Bond will.
Yeah. But
A.O. Manor, if you really go up there.
I think even that starts outside the top 75. Like, I still think we're thinking late day 2 for Isaiah Bond.
That's still too high for me.
Yeah.
This is a day 3 pick.
Yeah. Fair enough. Should we get to the Will Campbell?
Yes.
All right. So,
You have to do any reads first?
no, we're going to get right into it. We'll do the reads here in a second. This is truly getting bizarre.
I've been telling you people this for weeks, by the way.
No. This goes beyond just the combine crap. Okay, this is we've been doing this really full time since what 2017, 2018.
The first draft we worked together was the 18 draft. It was the Isaiah Wynn and Sony Michel draft.
This is the most bizarre situation I've ever encountered in my time covering the draft.
I'm trying to think.
We now have 3 different arm length measurements for the same human being.
What's the third?
The one from last spring that Jim Nagy reported, and then Greg Bedard confirmed, which was 32 7/8. So a year ago, last spring, I believe it was at one of those like camps or something like that, where the NFL future NFL camp thing. He was 32 7/8.
Yep.
Will Campbell. Then he goes to the combine.
Yeah.
And he measures in at 32 5/8.
I have takes on the combine. We'll get to those.
And then we get to his pro day, and he's 33 flat.
So I'll say this. On the 32 7/8 and 33.
Yeah.
21 years old?
Yeah.
He's a growing boy.
Yeah, he's growing.
It's I'm serious.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Is it that unrealistic a 21-year-old to grow a little bit in a year? No. So I count the 32 7/8 and the 33 as one measurement. Those two to me are the same. Like if you're off by that margin, who knows what happened? Maybe grew his fingernails out or something. I don't know. The 5/8 is completely different.
So here's where I stand on all of this, because I admit fully I have been all over the map on how to feel about this. Right? Like originally all in on the player back in January based off the film. The combine hits. I'm out on the player because I think he's a guard with his length. I'm panicked. Right? What do? I overreact to the combine. It happens. A month later, after the combine, we get another measurement. Now I feel like I'm getting pulled back in. The gravity's pulling me back in now. I've been all over the map on the player. I fully admit that. But what I come back to at times like this, because again, this is the most bizarre situation I've ever encountered covering the draft. I never remember there, and I know you're going to get to your study here in a second too. It's not just Will Campbell.
No.
The arm lengths are screwed up all over
and
the tackle.
It's not just the arm length. It's other things too, but I just did the arm length. Jalen Milroe's hands grew exponentially.
Right. We are really all over the place. Now, if you're an NFL team, if you're Elliott Wolf, Mike Vrabel, and Ryan Cowden, my guess is that you're going to have Will Campbell in for a visit at some point. You're going to take out your own tape measure, and you're going to measure the freaking arms, right? That's what you're going to do. But above all else, I think we're at the point now where you got to trust your instincts based off the tape, and you either like the player or you don't. You're either in or you're out based off the film. Like, let's not get bogged down or caught up eighths of an inch of arms or wingspans or whatever the case may be. If you're out on Will Campbell at left tackle or for the Patriots at 4 overall, you're out. That's your prerogative. You can be out. Well, if you're in, you're in. Like the measurements, I'm out on the measurements. I don't care anymore.
Because I think people forget this. You're allowed to change your mind. You should change your mind when presented with new information. You are absolutely allowed to change your opinion or adjust your opinion and change your mind. It's healthy. Nobody should chastise you. Oh, well, you said this last week, blah, blah, blah. No, like I've done it, you've done it, we all do it. Like as you get new information during this process, absolutely adjust. You're allowed to do that. If you're somebody who's been out on Will Campbell because of his arm length and you see this number and you think maybe you believe it, and I'll give you a minute and a reason why you should believe it, nobody's going to be mad at you for saying, oh, I think his arms are actually longer, so I'm in on Campbell now. You're absolutely allowed to do that.
Yeah, but I think really my message would just be at this point, just trust your eyes. Like if you think the player's a good player and you feel comfortable with the player off the tape doesn't change. The arm lengths have changed every single way. The tape is consistent. Well, the tape is the tape.
So here's where the arm length measurement is consistent. You ready? You ready to do this exercise?
No, let's say one more thing because I know this is going to take a second. Yeah. So I'll keep on reiterating the same thing too about where it shows up on his film. I think he has a really good anchor, and he's really strong, great core strength. So I don't see it show up a ton on bull rushes. I just don't. I think when he went up against Shamar Stewart, who's a really powerful, long bull rusher, he won some and he lost some, right? Like that's offensive line play, but he held his own. Like it wasn't like Shamar Stewart was getting into his chest and ragdolling him out of the way consistently. I don't see that on his film. What I see with Will Campbell is that he sets out too far. He oversets because he's trying to get out to those high side rushers to try to keep them off the outside, right? To get his hands on those guys. And because he doesn't have the length to reach out and extend with good leverage, he gets a little bit overzealous and he jumps out too far. So when he drifts out, it inherently will open the inside. So what you see a lot of, Scorton got him on it. I think Kennard got him on it once. You see a lot of inside moves, like spins, crosses over his face, right, into the inside gap. So those rushers, he has a tough time with that type of guy. Like a guy that's really twitched up, that can fake like he's going to go outside, get him to commit to going outside, and then swim inside of him or rip inside of him or spin inside of him. Like those guys are going to give him a little bit of trouble. Now, can you coach that out of him? Is there improvements that you can make? I'm sure. Like, we'd have to get, Dante Scarnecchia on the line and ask him, right? But I'm sure there are. Okay? But that's where it comes out to me on the film with him at tackle, is that he has to be a little bit more aggressive in his pass sets because of the length, and then sometimes the really well-skilled and explosive rushers can make him pay for it. But at the end of the day, we're talking about 1 or 2 reps a game where it burns him. So he has 68 great blocks, and then he'll have 1 or 2 where it comes out and burns him. Now, that's offensive line play.
Right, so he talked about this. He gave that quote about, you make one mistake and suddenly people want you working in an Amazon warehouse.
Yeah.
How many such plays would you, obviously for different reasons, guys get beat. How many such plays would you say per game a guy like Josh Connolly or Ariante Ursary has on tape?
That get beat?
Yeah.
I would say Ursary is more so in pass protection.
Yeah.
That he'll get beat. I don't know, maybe 3 to 5 times a game. We're talking about college.
Right.
So that's the other thing you have to remember. Like, they're already man amongst boys in a lot of matchups. So, it's these guys don't, Armand Membu gave up 8 pressures the entire year last year at Missouri. 8.
Well, I was on the right side, but
the entire season. So we're not talking about a ton. And I would also mention, with Campbell, that has to be mentioned. He played in a true pro-style drop-back offense.
With a quarterback that had zero pocket presence.
Yeah, everybody loves the quarterback for some
Nussmeier?
reason. Yeah, good arm, but, can throw it.
He needs MapQuest to get out of the pocket.
So he didn't play in a RPO offense. He didn't play in a run-heavy offense like Membo did. He didn't play in an RPO scheme. He didn't play in a college offense. They had true traditional dropbacks at LSU last year, where he's blocking true pass sets, no play action, no bells and whistles, a lot more than the other guys.
Yeah.
So his flaws as a result, especially down in the SEC, where he's facing, like I just mentioned, a bunch of top 100 pass rushers almost on a weekly basis. There's a lot more volume to like true pass blocking reps for Will Campbell than these other guys. I would say that on the whole, he's the best pass protector in the class.
Campbell.
Yeah. Now, there's the Membu of it all. We'll get to that, but get to your numbers.
All right. So this is just, again, because I was saying after the combine, the numbers didn't add up, and it was like me not being ready to quit Will Campbell or anything. So just for context, and by the way, the LSU measurement, according to Field Yates, was taken by an NFL staffer, not somebody from LSU who's going to try to pump Campbell's numbers up.
Just to add to that, there's a Patriots staffer, I'm blanking on his name, I'll look it up when you start talking, who runs all of the New England area pro days.
Yeah.
So he ran the BC pro day, he runs the UMass pro day. He does not work for Boston College. He works for the Patriots. So that's what you're talking about when you say that. Yeah.
So, okay. So I went through and I did some research. It's guards and there's a few, it's tackles with a few guards mixed in, and I think one center, just to kind of, there weren't a ton of Shrine Bowl guys who went to the combine, so to increase the sample size. So Will Campbell, from the combine to his showcase, so showcase is Pro Day, Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, right? He lost 3/8 of an inch in arm measurement. All right, that's a big difference. Maybe they're trying to hype him up. Hang on. Josh Connerly, and we're doing the Senior Bowl now, from the Senior Bowl to the combine, lost 1/2 an inch. Ariante Ursary, 7/8 of an inch.
Wow.
Wyatt Milam, 4/8. Gray Zabel, 2/8. Ozzie Trapillo, 4/8, and I know that's a half, but it's just so it's all scaled.
Yeah.
Clay Webb, 5/8. So those are just a handful of guys I picked out. The one outlier, somehow Armand Membu gained like 1/2 an inch. So something different happened with him. So you're saying, okay, either the Senior Bowl was off or the Combine was off. Who do we believe? Well, the Shrine Bowl was off by almost the same amount. So Shrine Bowl, Holland Pierce lost 5/8 of an inch. Drew Kendall lost 5/8 of an inch. Brandon Crenshaw Dixon lost 4/8 of an inch. Joshua Gray, 5/8. Xavier Truss, 3/8. John Williams, 7/8. Joe Huber, 3/8. So either the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl were both somehow off by the same approximate amount individually, or the Combine was wrong. Which one's more likely?
So Paul Perillo, who I have to give credit for, will tell you that who has more skin in the game for them to measure longer, the college all-star games or the Combine? The answer is the college all-star games. Like the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl, which I love both events, by the way, have all the reason to fluff up these guys.
But then why hasn't it been done in the past? The numbers generally line up in the past.
So the only question is that that's a great question.
And you think
maybe it's because it's a short arm class.
Well, I'll say this: you think that the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl, what's the word I'm looking for? Colluded on this?
No,
because they didn't seem too happy with each other this year
definitely
to get together on a project. So if that's the case, the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl, and maybe I should run the Hula Bowl too. I don't know if they had any guys at the Combine.
Yeah,
they would have had to come together and say, okay, we both need to overmeasure, but we have to overmeasure between like 1/4 and 7/8 of an inch. And we got to get everybody within that range in order to pump these guys up. And then we have to hope that people believe that we didn't collude. Or like, you get what I'm saying? There's so much that would have to happen
we're turning
for that
into
to be the case.
Just a conspiracy is what we're turning
We need
into.
Michael Hurley for this.
We're turning into a conspiracy.
Well, but like, look, if the NFL screwed it up, they could have cost these kids some money.
100%.
So I don't know. I'd like to know what happened there.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, this is crazy. This is absolutely bananas.
I'm gonna put all the numbers up. I'm gonna write something on this. I'll have all the numbers up later if you want them. But again, outside, I don't know what happened with Armand Membu. He's sort of a weird outlier in this. And I didn't include Kelvin Banks and who's the other top tackler? Josh Simmons.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a second measurement for them. I couldn't find the measurements from Texas's Pro Day. Ohio State's Pro Day is going on right now. Neither one of them participated in the Senior Bowl, so we don't have, or Shrine Bowl or anything. So that's why those guys got left off. But my guess is, I think Banks was 33 flat at the combine, or
right.
like just over 33. Add half an inch to it. Simmons, whatever he measured at the combine, add half an inch to it. I think if we're going to use the combine numbers for arm length, we got to understand that's probably the lower end. So maybe LSU gave Campbell a little bit of help, this independent staffer, but to go from the 5/8 to the 7/8, even if that's the gap,
Yeah.
that would be on the low end of the misses. Again, most of these guys are off by half an inch, if not more. Ariante Ursary, John Williams, we even talked about, he's a day 3 pick from Cincinnati. They lost like a full inch on their measurement. That's very different. Also, Ursary might have 35-inch arms.
Yeah, he's a big guy. There's no doubt. Like, that's not a doubt. Like, he's a big dude.
So that's just, I'm just saying. Hey, you know I'm generally anti-math, but in this case, follow the numbers.
At this point,
Put this away. I got what I needed.
trust the film. Just trust the film. If you don't like the player, you don't like the player. I'm not going to sit here and argue. We've argued about these players ad nauseum for months. I like the player. You don't like the player. Don't get caught up in the arm length. Jesus.
You know what I brought?
He thinks he's hilarious right now at the tape measured.
I mean, we're talking about...
That's not the point, and you know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if you want to get caught up in it, again, I would just say that I think every single team that's going to be interested in Will Campbell is now going to have to get their own independent arm length measurement because they can't trust the combine.
Right. And I guess my point is I don't think that independent measurement is going to come in at 5/8, 32 and 5/8. I think it's going to be longer than that.
32 and 7/8.
32 and 7.
Sounds right.
32 and 7/8. Well, but again, even that would put him on the low end of the misses.
But 32 and 7/8 sounds consistent and right to me, just based off what we know about his arm length being a little bit shorter. And if you can give him that extra eighth of an inch to get him to the threshold, then things like the pro day, then you fluff it up.
Well,
right?
I also think it's possible that a 21-year-old grew a little bit in the course of a year.
Right.
Because that 32 and 7/8 numbers from a year ago.
So let me put you in other terms. Like if you run a 40 at your pro day, and you're 4.5 flat, doesn't it sound a little bit better if it's 4.49?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Right, so like I could see that being the case, but at the end of the day, if it's 32 and 7/8, we're right there. We're right there. Anyways.
But all right, so let's do this again. We did this exercise last week, and I don't think you loved it, but you actually had 2 different answers for it. But we're gonna do it again
because you put me on the spot.
Hunter and Carter are off the board.
Will Campbell.
The phone's not ready yet.
Back
Okay.
in.
Last week,
I'm pounding the table.
Okay, so here's what I wanted to point out. Last week it was very, and I understand why. I'm not faulting you for it. There was some hemming and hawing and a thought process. Now you're coming back. We do that exercise again.
I gotta trust my instincts on this.
But now you're pounding the table, so you feel better about it now than you did a week ago.
I feel better about it. I feel better about it, and I'm pounding the table for it. But I think it comes back to the take that I've had about this entire draft. And I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because no one will listen to me when I say this. You know, I'm not saying you, but just in general. This is not a blue chip draft.
Nope.
So if we get to 4 on draft night and Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are not there, you are picking between flawed options, right? Everybody has an issue at that point.
Yep.
Will Campbell is not long enough. Armand Membu played the wrong side of the offensive line. He's a right tackle. I have a take on that in a second we can get to after we get to some of these calls.
Yeah.
Tet McMillan slow.
Yep.
Or he's not fast, as you
not
like to
fast.
put it.
That is correct.
Right?
Yep.
Genty's a running back.
I actually have, real quick aside, if we're going to positional value thing aside, like actual makeup of the player, there actually is a red flag for Genty. I was doing some work on it.
Yeah.
He has 750 touches in the last 3 years.
Good point. High volume.
That would be 5th in the NFL during that span. He's a young guy. That's a lot of mileage for a running back.
Yep.
That's a... If they were going to take Genty and we were, to come in here the next day and talk about it after you're, done just getting in your feels, that would be my bigger concern than the positional value. Is this is a guy that
has some tread on
has
the tires.
A lot. Yeah, like you better maximize him early because that's 3rd contract, probably not 2nd contract, maybe.
I don't know the number off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Genty feels very Zeke Elliott to me. Where
I can't tell you how many carries Zeke had in college.
Zeke Elliott might not have gotten as many because Ohio State has so many players that they can turn to.
No, they leaned on him.
But I remember them leaning on him. Dallas leaned on him early in his career with the Cowboys. He had 5 really, really like all-pro caliber years with Dallas, and then it dropped off a cliff.
So he had 650. So he had 100 less touches than Genti in that 3-year span, but I would say 650 touches in the Big Ten
is a lot.
Probably equates to 750 in the Mountain West.
Last couple, Tyler Warren, tight end, older.
Late breakout.
Yeah. Right. All those types of things. The Georgia guys, Jalen Walker's an undersized linebacker. He's a 240-pound edge rusher / hybrid linebacker. Michael Williams doesn't have the NFL, college production. He's a project. Shamar Stewart, definitely a project.
I don't even put him in that tier because there's so many other edge rushers ahead of him. Kelvin Banks, guard. You think so?
I think some people think he's a guard.
No, you're in the room.
Body control, balance.
Okay.
Being able to mirror on an island. Pass protection, basically. That was a fancy way of saying pass protection. Like those types. All these guys, is my point. All these guys have warts. They all have warts. And so what it comes back down to at this draft is that, in my opinion, this is a fits draft. This is a needs draft. You want to call it that. It's a fits draft.
Best player for the football team.
This is the player that we need. This is the player that we have a vision for. This is the player that fills a hole, that has an immediate pathway to high volume of snaps. I don't think that there's going to be any separation between that group in terms of grade on the player. So when I continue to hear best player available, what happens when, some teams, they all use different grading scales. Let's just go 1 to 100.
Yeah.
Okay, it makes it easy. What happens when you have 6 guys that have an 85? All of them are B players. Right? They all graded out as 85s.
Right.
What is going to be the deal breakers?
Positional value.
Positional value. How they interviewed. Do you like the kid? Do you like his makeup?
Should shine there, we think.
Right. So these are the things that are going to matter in a draft like this. I wish it was different. If they had a Joe Alt level prospect, if there was a Malik Neighbors level prospect, you're not asking these questions, right? You're not getting into this minutia. That's not the year we're in. It's not the draft we're in.
Well, we kind of did this last year with Harrison and Alt because we had the obligatory, if they don't go quarterback conversations. Right. Alt and Harrison were tied, and we went to positional value and things like that. So it's the same thing, just with lesser caliber players, but they're all the same within the draft. They're all the same caliber.
Can't sleep until football season starts? Let Bob's Discount Furniture help. Not only do Bob's mattresses have next-level sleep tech like breathable antimicrobial covers, a lumbar-supporting individually wrapped coil system, and signature Bob-O-Pedic gel memory foam, the Copper Radiance and Treasure were recently named Consumer Reports recommended mattresses. So if you want to score the ultimate sleep touchdown, make your way to Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots Marine. Antimicrobial?
Yes.
In a read. We can do better. Patriots Catch-22 is sponsored by Massachusetts 250 campaign, commemorating a history of possibility. Plan your revolutionary weekend at Massachusetts250.org. All right, I know you guys have been waiting on the line for a while. I appreciate it. We're going to get to your phones right now. Mark is in Connecticut. What's up, Mark?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call, as always. I got a couple of things for you guys. Yay. We got 33-inch arm. Yay. The big thing is, Alex, I talked to you on 98.5 The Sports Up on Sunday morning. I was right. 2-year deal is what this essentially looks like with a 3rd-year option.
Yep.
Great deal, I think, for the value on it. So I'm very happy about that. Travis Hunter, if we get him, I really think, like Evan was saying earlier, this is a legit offense and I believe a playoff contender now, if you're talking that. The last take is we need a guy. I don't know if I'm sure you guys remember him, but this guy was awesome. Josh Gordon. I know he had problems off the field, but when he was on the field in 2018, he was a baller. I'm thinking that's the type of player, Evan, that you're trying to talk about. It. Am I correct on that, Evan?
Yeah, pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, I think a little more speed. Gordon was more...
Well, at that stage of his career.
Yeah, at that stage of his career, but...
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, no, a player like that would be great. And I think with Hunter, it just all comes down to if you draft Hunter, you got to move back up and get that tackle. If it's Hunter and then you move back up and you get a left tackle, you're in great shape.
Exactly. Love you guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. A little bit of more Will Campbell news from LSU's Pro Day.
Yeah.
This is from Jordan Reed of ESPN.
Okay.
Great draft follow if you don't already follow Jordan. Will Campbell has already visited the Patriots. So he's already had his 30 visit with New England. And apparently he also has one on the books with the Las Vegas Raiders. Here, I'll just read the tweet. LSU O-line Will Campbell confirmed to us on SEC Network that he will not participate in the Pro Day today and stand on his numbers from the scouting combine. He has already visited the Patriots and will visit the Raiders later this week. So Will Campbell, according to Will Campbell, already pretty good source, already been in New England, already on a 30 visit with the Patriots. So that is extremely notable. Randall is in Texas. What's up, Randall? Randall, you there?
Randall, what's up?
All right, call back in. We'll get you on. DC is in New Hampshire. What's up, DC?
Hey, guys. I was hoping you could help illuminate something for me, which is how much impact a draft grading system actually has on a team's draft board and their grades. Because when I heard like Kraft and Vrabel allude to how Elliott Wolf didn't get to implement his system to like a layman, like an idiot like me, I'm thinking like, so what? What difference does he make? He was still the guy making the decision. So I'm really wondering what would last draft, how would it have impacted last draft? How it would have been different if he had this grading system, and what might we expect to change for this upcoming draft? Any clarity for an idiot like me? Much appreciated. Love you guys.
Thanks, DC. And you're not an idiot. It's a good question. So I talked to Elliott Wolf at the Senior Bowl about this a little bit, and he did mention that he wouldn't necessarily put a ton of stock into the changing of the grading scale, but the idea of the change of the grading scale was more to just grade the player on the best player available versus being the Belichick scale, which was very role-oriented, right? Like we view this running back in an early down role, or we view this running back in the third down back role, a la James White, right? Like they had early down linebackers, they had pass game linebackers, they had base ends, and they had pass rushing ends, like all the way down the board. It was a very specific role, slot receiver, inside receiver, outside receiver, and it had a vision of how does this fit into the New England Patriots system schematically. Yeah. And so at times that would lead to certain players being higher on the Patriots boards that might have been lower on, let's say, a consensus NFL board. And the idea for Elliott Wolf, and I believe this is how they do it in Green Bay as well, was to just grade the player in a vacuum. Like, do we think Will Campbell is better or Armand Membu? No.
Right.
What role is he going to play? No, none of this other minutia. When we're stacking the board, what determines that? Now, at the end of the day, like I said, I don't think it was a huge impact on last year's draft. I don't think they necessarily would have changed a ton about what they did in last year's draft, but that's the idea of it. And just the last thing, the reason why they couldn't fully change it from the Belichick system to this new system is because all the in-person scouting hay was already in the barn when they made the coaching change. So a lot of the evaluation process is done in person, boots on the ground at LSU, at Ohio State, and physically watching these players up close at games. And so all those grades were already in the books. So you can't redo the grades, right? Like the grades are already done. So they didn't really implement it fully last season because of that. So this is truly the first cycle in the draft where they've used entirely this new system of grading. So I hope that helps clarify some of that. We'll see. I don't know if it will have a major impact. I don't want to overanalyze it.
At the end of the day, it's all just everybody's evaluating the same players. I don't think it makes that big of a difference.
Yep, I agree. All right, Sean is in Vancouver. What's up, Sean?
Hey, guys. I'm just wondering what the injury status will be for Diggs. Do you think he'll be ready by game one? Like, when is he going to be fully dressed and playing for the Pats?
Yeah, thanks for
Good
the
question.
call. So Adam Schefter last night, straight from Stefon Diggs' agent, I assume, said that he will be ready for week one of the regular season.
Not that he will be, but that like he could be.
He's
I
tracking.
think he's tracking.
Tracking.
I'm gonna find the exact
to week
wording on
one.
that.
That seems lofty. That seems like a high benchmark.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, and I'm not a doctor, don't pretend to be one, but for what it's worth, he's posted some things on social media that he's already running at full speed, which the Twitter doctors tell me that is ahead of schedule, right?
Yeah.
For him to be running at full speed 5 months removed from surgery, that's a good sign. Now, Kendrick Bourne is the one we always kind of go back to with this. He tore his ACL in 2023, late October, around exactly the same time of 2023, and it took him almost a full year to get back.
It was 11 months, right? He came back at the end of or beginning of October,
right? So I think realistically, 12-ish games of Stefon Diggs in 2025 is probably the realistic number.
So the record, if you want to call it that, for the ACL is famously Adrian Peterson, who tore his ACL on Christmas, was back for week 1, and then won the MVP because the guy was just – we don't talk enough about how impressive that was, frankly. I knew he had an 8-month ACL recovery. I knew he had an MVP. I forgot they were the same year. What a just amazing player. But, is it week 1, ready for week 1? What does that mean? Maybe he's ready to, begin football activities week 1. Remember, last year Kendrick Bourne talked about how he maybe could have played at the start of the season, but having those 4 weeks to ramp up football-wise made a big difference. So maybe week 1 he's technically ready, but they give him that ramp up.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a thing, because you have that ability now, and I was actually just looking, the NFL just sent out the updated rule change proposals, and they are formalizing that thing that they added last year where you can choose 2 players who don't make the initial 53 and designate them to return. So I forget exactly what the rules are about how involved those players can be in camp.
Yeah.
But is it something where they
can't be if they're
they can't? Okay.
So well, actually no, I take that back. You can't be on PUP in practice, right? Once you practice, you're ineligible for PUP. Injured reserve, you could technically practice and then go on IR.
So I wonder if it's a thing where maybe I'm wrong on this. I have to really go and look at the rule.
Yeah.
I was going to do that this morning, and then the Will Campbell stuff happened. Do they get Diggs back maybe in August, around when the preseason starts, just to get him on the field with Drake May, get the early steps in? He then goes on that IR designated return. He continues his ramp up for 4 weeks, and then boom, he hits the ground running week 5. That might be a best case scenario kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm
assuming I got to look up that rule.
I'm expecting to see him in October at some point. That I think is realistic. If it's week 1, great, but I'm not expecting week 1. I'm hoping week 1, expecting October. Either way, though, he should be healthy to play the majority of the season. This isn't a situation where he's going to be back in December, right? It should be.
And I will say, what I think helps, I haven't seen the medicals. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. But from everything I've read, sometimes when guys tear their ACLs, this is the case for Ayuk, right? It was ACL, MCL, and I think he did something else too, right? Your PCL or whatever other meniscus, blah, 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 this and that.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell with Diggs, it's just the ACL.
It was a non-contact ACL.
They didn't have to fully rebuild his knee or anything like that. It was the one ligament. So that has to help.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I'm trying to find we take this next comment.
All right, Randall's back in Texas. What's up, Randall?
Hey, what's going on, Evan, Alex?
What's up?
Hey.
Yeah, I've listened to y'all for about a year now. I just wanted to give y'all a shout out, man, because I've started to listen to the podcast recently, and I've been listening to y'all since we started the draft and when we got Drake May last year.
Thank you.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So I have a couple questions, actually. First off, now that we have Stefon Diggs, do you think it's kind of redundant to draft Ted McMillan at number 4? And also, let's say we do draft him at number 4. Do you feel like who do you feel like would be, I guess, the roster cut after if we were to draft him, for example? Because we would have 7 to 8 receivers after that on the team now. If we draft Ted McMillan, who do you think would be cut candidate if that were to happen?
Yeah, Randall, that's a really good question. I thought about this too, and I know that it's kind of crazy to think about because the Patriots, we've been starving for talent at that position, and you're not going to turn away talent at the receiver position. But numbers are numbers. There's only so many roster spots. And if you draft another receiver with a high draft pick, that's a guaranteed roster lock. He's right. You're talking about having, I believe, 8 receivers on the roster that all have a chance to make the team. It would be the rookie, Diggs, Mac Hollins, Pop Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, Kendrick Bourne. That's a big group.
That's it, yeah.
It's a big group.
You are going to have an extra roster spot at the beginning probably for Diggs, but still.
Why would you have an extra roster spot? Oh, because he's like on IR
for the
or something
53.
like that.
Yeah.
Potentially.
I'm talking about once you get into the regular season.
Yeah, that's 8 guys. You want to call it 7 because of Diggs' situation. That it might be 7. You could keep 6, and you could do it that way. My guess is that whoever is the odd man out they do try to look for a trade.
Yeah.
And I love Kendrick Bourne, but it's possible that he could be involved in a trade as a veteran receiver with some cachet, with a resume of success in the league. I think you're get to the point there where you might have to offload one of those guys, whether it's releasing one of the young players that just isn't going to cut it, or it's trading a guy like Kendrick Bourne for whatever you can get for him just to make room on the roster. But it's a fair question, even though, again, I'm not saying don't draft Travis Hunter or Ted McMillan because you have too many receivers. Nobody's saying that, but it would cause a crunch a little bit at that position. You'd have a lot of players there. And
I just, the first part of the question, I don't think McMillan's redundant. By the way, I found the rule, and I should have known this from last year, because Christian Barmore technically practiced.
Yep.
And they designated him to return. So you could absolutely, if Diggs is ready to practice in mid to late August.
Oh, yeah. No, the question is, if he practices, you can place him on injured reserve. There's no problem there.
Right.
Now, technically, he's supposed to have an injury, and I know he does, but he's supposed to have an injury that happened, right? Like,
I guess,
but you could always just say that the knee's not ready, right? There's ways out.
There's a big difference between being clear. I think that would pass. I don't know.
Yeah,
you don't want to lose a draft pick over it.
No. I'm not going there. I'm just saying technically injured reserve is because somebody got hurt and now they're going on injured reserve.
Well, but
Isaiah
if he's
Bolden
out there,
suffers a concussion and he's on injured reserve.
What I'm describing though is he'd probably be out there in a red non-contact jersey.
Yeah.
He's probably only doing one-on-ones if that. He's not doing team drills. A guy that's clearly not ready for the season.
Yep.
I would say counts as injured.
100%.
I think that's totally fair. Being able to practice and being able to play are two completely different things.
Yeah, it takes him off the PUP possibility,
right?
But it definitely puts him on IR possibility.
Look, if he's playing in preseason games, I see why that would be weird, but I don't think he'd play in a preseason game.
Yep. All right. Patty is in Agawam. What's up, Patty?
What's up, guys? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, I had a couple questions. The first one I'll take on air if that's okay, and the second one I'll take off air.
Sure.
So just what if scenario, say Carter and Hunter are got it for, we take Will Campbell, and the brain trust is saying we're going to take a receiver at pick 38 with our second pick, whether they trade up, stay at 38, trade down, whatever. Now we know historically from Wolf's days in Green Bay that he favored taller, rangier receivers. And we know that historically with Josh McDaniels, they like kind of the smaller, shiftier slot guys. Now, let's say the choice comes down between the 2 Iowa State guys. Could you see that getting contentious with Wolf, or do you think he would just defer to his coaching staff and say, all right, if you guys want Noel, you think he's a better fit for the system we're going to run, we'll go with him.
I think that they would defer to the coaches. Thanks for the call.
And I don't think that's something that would happen on draft night. Those are conversations that are happening right now.
And everything that he's said, Elliot Wolf has said since the combine, really, is that he wants to pick players that the coaches want to coach. He wants to get guys the coaches like. I don't think he's going to force. I think the exact line he gave was that I'm not going to force players on the coaching staff. And I don't think that he's in the business of doing that. So if they truly feel strongly as a staff, as a coaching staff, that Jalen Noel is a better player than Jaden Higgins for them, then they'll take Noel.
What was the second question?
I think that was the only question.
No, he said he had one for us on air, one off
maybe I
air.
hung up on him.
Patty, you might have to call back.
All right. I want to get into this question, though, from Floyd.
The second question is always really nerdy one, so I was looking forward to that.
Well, he can email in or call back, Patty. Before we get to the rest of these phones, I do want to answer this question because I think was the next on my docket. We kind of got lost in
this your Membu take?
No, but
okay, because I still want to get to that.
But I got lost in the sauce of the Campbell arm length conversation a little bit. But this is from Floyd in Michigan, not emailing in about Mason Graham for once, which is nice. And Floyd says, could you please discuss the signing of Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston and the impact on the draft for the Giants? So last night on Twitter, Alex, I got finger wagged. I got finger wagged big time.
How dare you
on Twitter?
What'd you do?
For merely suggesting that maybe the Giants having 2 veteran quarterbacks under contract could take them out of the quarterback sweepstakes. And how could I? How could I say that?
I've gotten finger wagged for that too. Let me just point this out.
Yeah.
the Giants being out of the quarterback conversation at 3 and the Giants being out of the quarterback conversation, period, are two different things.
Very good
right?
point.
Maybe it's, Brian Daboll is coaching for his job. Joe Schoen is building this team for his job right now. And you could look at it one of two ways. You could look at it and say they want as many options as possible to make sure they're good, or maybe they want a young quarterback so that ownership has to keep him around and develop that guy. But if they feel like Russell Wilson with Jameis Winston is like a floor, they may look at it and say, well, let's get these guys another weapon. We don't necessarily believe in these quarterbacks as much. And then, how big is the gap between to them? So this is the one thing. I don't think the Giants are – Abdul Carter doesn't make sense for them.
No.
The one thing they have is edge. So if you get Carter and Hunter on the board for them, it's quarterbacks 1, 2. Or if they're just not going quarterback, right? Let's say Armand Membu goes second. I've seen that in a couple mock drafts.
Yeah.
I think it's Hunter, not Carter. And then Carter falls to the Patriots. But do they look at it and say, well, all right, what's the gap between Hunter and, say, who's A.O. Manor, I guess, would be the guy, right? Or Luther Burden even.
Yeah.
What's the gap between Hunter and Luther Burden versus the gap between Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart? If he falls, maybe they trade back up. Or Jackson Dart and Will Howard. Or Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders and Jalen Milroe. Or Shedeur Sanders and Will Howard or something like that. Do they look at it and say, well, we have Russell Wilson, who we know can handle himself. Got a team to the playoffs last year, kind of. Let's just get him another weapon. And then we'll develop Milroe, or we'll develop Dart, or we'll develop Howard, or something like that. I could see that being there. That makes as much sense to me as them going quarterback at 3.
Makes more sense to me. So a couple of things.
Well, it all depends how they feel about Shedeur.
So a couple of things. One, I agree with your line of thinking completely. To me, if you wanted to take a quarterback at the top of the draft and you're going to target Shedeur Sanders at the top of the draft, there's no reason to sign 2 bridge quarterbacks.
Right.
There's no reason for it. You would sign your Jacoby Brissett, who probably would have been Jameis Winston, right? And you would have drafted Shedeur, and you would have done exactly what the Patriots did last season with Drake May and Jacoby Brissett. You would have had the exact same setup.
Yeah.
For a regime in Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, who are coaching and GMing for their jobs right now, who are on the hottest of hot seats. Like, I think they might have the hottest seat in the NFL.
Probably.
They are on the hottest of hot seats. Drafting Shedeur Sanders to sit him behind Russell Wilson does not help them keep their jobs at all.
No.
At all. And I understand everybody brings up the Michael Penix situation in Atlanta. It was a first-year coach in Atlanta. They had some leeway. They had some rope. And I would also add
the argument,
that they also probably thought that Michael Penix was a really damn good quarterback. I don't think Shedeur is thought of in that way. And the last thing I'll just say...
you didn't think Penix was thought of in that way last year. But I'll just... honest, I got to credit Fred Toucher for this because I was talking to him about this yesterday. Do you think that there's any chance that Shane and Daboll look at it as, well, all right, we're going to go to ownership. Hey, we just drafted this kid. You got to keep us here to develop him. Because if you fire us, the next guys might not want him, and now you blew this pick. Do you think that there's any chance that they see drafting him as kind of giving themselves a lifeline, life jacket?
If anything, drafting him would give them a lifeline by playing him and saying, we got to work out the rookie quarterback quirks.
Well,
right?
but like either way, I'm saying, like, there's an argument to be made that drafting him one way, like you have to play him. Maybe they don't plan on playing. Maybe they think Russell Wilson is like a high-level bridge.
So Russell Wilson is getting paid $10 million of guaranteed money that for next year. That's
what Jacoby get last year, 8?
Yeah, but not 10. And no, it wasn't.
All right. Well,
I think it was 8
up?
total. I think it was 8 total for
I'll
Jacoby.
look it up.
Anyways, my point is this with the Giants. You can look at it one of two ways. If you're a Patriots fan that's hoping that they're going to have Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter fall in their laps at 4, the glass half full is that the New York Giants I guess there's 3 ways. They do it anyway, right? And they draft Shedeur at 3 overall and have 3 quarterbacks in the room. The Browns take Shedeur, which would obviously help if it's 1-2, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. My fear all along with this quarterback class is that I don't think the league is as high on Shedeur Sanders as the outside noise is. I think that's been the reporting, and that's been the sense, and that's been the feel going all the way back to January. And what happens is we get thrust into the draft compactor and we go months and months and months, and we turn and turn and turn. And usually by the time that April 25th rolls around, or 24th or whatever it is, we're back to square one. which is the board that was set in January based off the scouts and the tape back in the football season, right? So the whole take that I have right now with Shedeur is that I think it's just as likely that we're going to see a Shedeur Sanders slide as it is that we're going to see him go in the top 3. Like, I think that there's a chance that nobody wants Shedeur in the top 3. And the last thing that reason why I feel that way, it feels to me as everybody's looking for a lifeboat to escape drafting Shedeur Sanders high. Like, everybody's looking for their Russell Wilson, their
Aaron
Geno
Rodgers.
Smith, their Aaron Rodgers, potentially Kirk Cousins in Cleveland. There's a lot of smoke there.
Somebody's going to get left on the outside, though. There's not enough. It's a game of musical chairs. There's not enough seats. And maybe that is the...
But it could be the New Orleans Saints, or it could be the Pittsburgh Steelers, or, it's not going to necessarily be one of those top 3 teams.
Real quick, Brissett got $7 million guaranteed here last year.
Okay.
So Wilson at 10, so it's a little gap, but the cap went up. But as a definitive backup this year, you know what Jacoby Brissett got for guaranteed money?
What?
$8 million.
Wow.
I don't think $10 million guaranteed is like a locked-in starting quarterback contract.
Maybe not. I just don't think that signing both those quarterbacks doesn't smell quarterback at 3. Like, if they had just signed Jameis or if they had just signed Russell Wilson,
absolutely,
then quarterback at 3 is really in play. Bringing all 3 of those quarterbacks, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't check out.
I default to teams get weird and stupid at the quarterback position, so
but
I'm not going to rule
maybe the weird
anything
and stupid
else.
team is Cleveland, in which case that's still fine
usually
for the
is,
Patriots. But I would just say if it's Cleveland, I don't think that's the best case scenario for the Patriots either, because I think the Giants go Travis Hunter.
Yeah, some people would argue Abdul Carter is a better outcome than Travis Hunter just because he's a better player, but
I wouldn't. But I'm not saying that it's because he's not a better player. I have him as a better player
because you want offense.
I want offense,
and that's fair. That's a fair argument. Multiple teams can get dumb at quarterback, and I would say it's already a position where teams are willing to really overextend themselves and get desperate. You bring up the Michael Penix move, which I'm on the record as liking. That's a desperate move. It worked out, but that's a desperate Hail Mary kind of move.
I don't know. So, I feel like that's not a desperate move. To me, that was trusting your scouting. Like, they thought that Michael Penix was a franchise quarterback, and he fell into their laps there, and they couldn't pass on the franchise quarterback. I just don't think that they.
You don't think the scouts liked other players there too?
I just don't think that the league views Shedeur that way.
So
really
but here's my point. Like, we already know teams will get desperate and a little out of pocket with the quarterback situation to begin with. You compound that with you have both the head coach and the GM having the hottest seat in the league at their respective positions. The Giants are in perfect position to do something totally crazy. Whether it works or not, whether it's the right decision or not, I don't think you could take anything off the table. Whether it's taking a quarterback at 3, whether it's passing on 3 and going to 38, whether it's taking quarterbacks at 3 and 38, whether it's not taking a quarterback at all. I don't think there's anything the New York Giants can do at this point. There's one thing that would surprise me, frankly, and it's if they take Abdul Carter. Anything else, you tell me they take Will Campbell, you tell me they take Ted McMillan. Again, multiple quarterbacks, no quarterbacks. I don't think there's anything the Giants can do at this point that would surprise me. To me, it's all on the table with them.
I just look at the Giants right now, and you mentioned it. They need to win. Point blank.
Right.
In 2025.
Yes.
They need to win in 2025. And you maybe Fred Toucher and you will be right about it buying them some leash if they had to develop this young quarterback like Shedeur Sanders. I don't look at it that way. I think that the Maras are going to look at this as a results-based season. Do you get to our floor win total or not? Like, if let's say they set it at 6-7 games, do you win 7 games or do you not? If you do, well, you get another year. If you don't, you're out. Like, I really think it's going to be that cut and dry. What helps the Giants win 7+ games next year the most? Drafting and sitting Shedeur Sanders for a portion or all of the season, or drafting Travis Hunter.
So that's a very logical way to look at it. But are they sitting there and saying, we need to make sure we have a viable quarterback this year? Jameis Winston's erratic. Russell Wilson is old. Do we want to make sure we have a third option? So even if we get... Here's the thing. Wilson and Winston both have their questions. Your job's on the line. Would you spend... Like, you going to go to Tommy DeVito?
I guess
it's not necessarily a logical way of looking at it, but I'm saying you have to step.
It doesn't. That's not how teams typically operate. Let me put it that way.
It's not. It's not how teams typically. Well,
if Vegas,
again, I go back to the Penix thing.
Okay, but the Penix thing was different.
But it's not. It's teams getting weird about the quarterback position.
The coaching staff and the general manager in Atlanta were in a much different place. That has to be said. Like, they were in a much different situation.
They had less incentive to do something like that. The Giants are more incentivized to grasp at straws.
They had more incentive, though, to take some on a risk on a weird pick.
I guess.
Like, if you're the Giants, you cannot draft a player at 3 overall that doesn't play as a rookie. You can't do that as a regime
unless they
that's
think
on the hot seat.
Unless they think less of Russ than we're maybe projecting
why sign
them to.
him?
Because they're really nervous about quarterback, and it
doesn't make sense.
Is it possible? I'm not saying it makes sense. But teams have done it. It's kind of like, as I'm speaking through it now, are they going to take the same approach at quarterback that the Patriots took at the offensive line last year? Well, let's just get bodies. Let's just get as many bodies as we can get, and odds are one of them will work out. So this is what I'm saying. So maybe it's not at 3, but I'm not ruling it out. And by the way, within all of this, and yes, Dayball and Shane hot seat. Shouldn't Kevin Stefanski's seat be just as hot? The Browns haven't made the playoffs in 5 years.
I'm not ruling out the Browns taking Shador. I'm not.
Like, the Browns, we could have the same conversation about, are you betting your job? Like, I feel better betting my job on Russell Wilson than I do on Kenny Pickett. I don't feel great about Russell Wilson, but I feel better about Russell Wilson than Kenny Pickett.
I am not taking anything off the table for anybody, but if I had to guess, the Giants know one of two things.
Yeah.
Shador stinks. Nobody wants Shador.
Yep.
Which I think is a possibility.
What if this all just is them getting Shador in the second round?
Yeah, I'm not totally ruling that out. Or like late first round trade up situation. Shador stinks and nobody wants him because in my mind, everybody's running for an escape route from drafting Shador Sanders. The Saints brought back Derek Carr for God only knows what reason, right? The Raiders traded for Geno Smith.
Yeah.
The Giants signed multiple bridge quarterbacks. The
Seahawks paid Sam Darnold $100 million.
The Seahawks paid Sam Darnold. The Steelers are going to potentially sign Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
They all are getting quarterbacks.
Jets paid Justin Fields.
Sure. They all are getting quarterbacks to avoid having to reach on a quarterback in the draft. And I think a lot of them probably would feel like Shador in the top 5 is a reach. Now, the glass half full again is that maybe the quarterbacks are going 1-2.
Yeah.
And the Giants know it. So they know they're not going to get one, unlike the Patriots last year who had 3 with 3 quarterbacks.
Right.
And so they had to go elsewhere with the quarterback. Now that's still okay for the Patriots. It's not my ideal is still Travis Hunter, so I don't think that's ideal, but you're still getting Abdul Carter, which is great.
Or maybe a haul and a trade down.
Yeah.
I know that's a sensitive subject, but
another one I got finger whacked for.
Yeah, I know you were
same
not
person.
happy.
Anyways, let's get into Armand Membu here a little bit, and then we'll wrap up some of these calls.
Wait, same person? What? Oh, I know what you're talking about. Never mind.
Yeah. With Armand Membu. So we're getting a lot of calls, getting a lot of emails about him at 4 overall. My feeling on Armand Membu, and I did some digging on this, and I asked around about this to a couple of people that would know. My feeling on Armand Membu is that there's almost, I would say there is, just as small of a sample size of career college right tackles flipping sides to left tackle and being good
successfully.
Successfully.
Yeah.
You're really looking at one guy and then like 1.5. Okay. Tristan Wirfs is the one, right?
Yeah.
If you want to point to somebody, just like we point to some of the shorter tackles with Will Campbell and say that the guy that Rashawn Slater is the guy for Will Campbell in terms of shorter arm tackles that made it in the NFL. If you're looking for that guy, then Tristan Wirfs is the guy. He was a college right tackle. He actually played his first season at right tackle in Tampa Bay. I forget who it was. Who did they have at left?
Is it Donald Penn?
They had somebody at left tackle. Might have been Donald Penn for Brady's Super Bowl year. Tristan Wirfs played right tackle.
Oh, it was Donovan Smith, right?
Donovan Smith?
Yeah.
It's one of those guys.
Yeah.
That guy moved on, retired, whatever. And Tristan Wirfs has since flipped and is an all-pro. He's fantastic. He's one of the best.
Great player.
Him and Penei Sewell are the 2 best tackles in football. And Trent Williams. So that's your guy if you want that to happen. But
yeah, it was Donovan Smith.
The other guy, the half guy, like Jedrick Wills did it. I don't know if we count Jedrick Wills as like a great player.
If they take Jedrick Wills at 4 overall,
I'm with you.
Yeah.
So
do that later in the draft.
Jedrick Wills did it, and then the other couple are attempting to do it. Tyler Guyton, Talisa Fugala, who I don't know is going to continue to do that. J.C. Latham in Tennessee did it his rookie season, and then they signed Dan Moore Jr. to the worst contract in free agency to move J.C. Latham back to right tackle, right? So Tyler Guyton was on and off the bench all year long in Dallas, trying to play left tackle as a college right tackle. And J.C. Latham played it in Tennessee for one of the worst teams in football, and then was immediately moved, not one of, the worst team in football, and then was asked to move back to right tackle, and they signed Dan Moore Jr. So if we're going to sit here and we're going to say that there's a tiny sample size of short arm left tackles that have made it in the NFL, a la Will Campbell, there's similarly a tiny sample size of right tackles that have flipped sides to left tackles and have worked out, a la Armand Membu. In terms of Membu, the talent, I think there's a lot of talent there. He's better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. He's a very, very good run blocker, especially on zone schemes. On the front side of zone schemes, he can hook the end and get you out on the edge in a hurry. And he's very, very good at that. He's very good at climbing to the second level of the defense. He is a great run blocker, really good run blocker. Based off of his measurables, he can play tackle. He's got the athleticism. He's got the length. His body type is a little bit of guard. He's a thicker body. Thicker, shorter, stouter body type.
Kelvin Banks.
But he's going to, I think, with the length and with the athleticism, is going to check out as a tackle for most teams. So
he was a guard. He didn't start playing football till late, till I think like 10th grade, and he was recruited to Missouri as a guard.
Yeah.
And then kicked out to tackle once he got there.
So I think we're in the same spot that we are with Will Campbell. If you like Armand Membu's tape better than Will Campbell's, then you could say that he can flip sides just like Will Campbell can make it work with shorter arms. I think it's a risk just the same. So if you're out on Will Campbell with because of short arms, I can't really see how you're in on flipping Armand Membu, right? Like I feel like both those things are equal in terms of the risk or the risk reward with the player. I think it's a risk either way.
I'm with you.
And then I also you can't draft a guy there with Morgan Moses at right tackle and plan on sitting him. Like he's got to play.
The 4th overall pick has to play.
Right.
Now some people might say try him at left tackle for the year, then move him back over when Morgan Moses retires, but
could do it.
Or just take a left tackle and then take a right tackle next year in a better class.
Yeah, you could do it. Now, the emailer that kind of sparked segued us into this said that that exact plan, right? Why don't you play him at left tackle as a rookie, kind of like guard as a fallback for Will Campbell?
Yeah.
The fallback for Armand Membu is that we're just going to flip him back to his natural spot.
And it's the same risk with Campbell, because if he can't do it, now what are you doing at left tackle? And if you're going to say go get a bridge, I would say then just get a bridge and draft the tackle next year.
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought it's hard to project his tape, I would say, as a pass blocker. I mentioned earlier, these RPO college offenses, run-heavy offenses. I would describe Mizzou as run-heavy. They ran the ball
They
quite
were
a bit.
this year. If you go back and watch 23, you'll get some more, because they had to get away from Brady Cook.
Yeah, they also he played on the right side. He did not face the same level of rushers that Will Campbell did. And I would also just mention that he got some help on that right side. They tended to help their tackles out quite a bit at Missouri, chipping, moving the pocket.
Because they had good left tackles.
That.
They had Javon Foster last year. I forget they had a good player before that.
So they didn't have as many. He doesn't have as many true dropbacks on his tape as Will Campbell does. I think he's a decent pass protector, but I think he's a better run blocker. That to me screams right tackle. Like that's typically a right tackle in the NFL. High level run blocker, solid pass protector. You keep him on the right side so he's not on the blind side of the quarterback. That's typically the thought process there. But we'll see. A couple of other things on tackles. One draft guy that I want to get to here in a second that I have watched recently. But this is from Phil in Toronto. He asks about Tyron Smith and signing him as a potential stopgap. I've started to come around on Tyron Smith already. But just reading the tea leaves of what they've done so far, doesn't it make a lot of sense that they would do something like that to go into the draft and take best player available and not be hamstrung by need and all that kind of stuff? They've done that at every single other position on the roster now, especially with Diggs, right? With the signing at wide receiver. They have found a serviceable answer for 2025 for the short term at every other position on the roster. Edge rusher with Harold Landry and Chazon. Right tackle with Morgan Moses. Wide receiver with Stefon Diggs and Matt Collins. The only spot that they haven't done that yet with is left tackle, which makes me feel like, is there a Tyron Smith offer out there? There could be. He was I would say NFL average left tackle for the Jets last year, just like Morgan Moses was an NFL average right tackle. So you're going to get Tyron Smith. He's going to be a respectable NFL caliber left tackle. Pair him with a high draft pick. Even if he doesn't play the whole season because of injuries, which has been a problem for him, you have Josh Connerly, Ariante Ursary, whoever, waiting in the wings. I don't rule it out because that's what they've done everywhere else on the roster.
If they were to do that, how would you feel about drafting? I guess you could do this with Membu or Campbell at 4, playing that guy at left guard this year, and then moving that guy out to their whichever tackle position next year.
I don't love it because I don't want to do the Mike Onwenu, right? Where like he's playing inside, he's playing outside, he's playing left, he's playing right. Like
I guess
I would prefer to have him entrenched.
The only reason I say
if they did that with a day 2 pick that you're not quite as invested in, and that's different. Like if they drafted, just throwing a name out there, if they drafted like Anthony Belton, and they played him at left guard, and then maybe they projected him as left tackle long term, I wouldn't hate that upside play there. Maybe not at 4 overall.
The only reason I say that is because, all right, if they answer it at left tackle, it truly is best player available. Can't you make a really strong case that Campbell's still the best player available?
If those two guys are off the board, sure.
And now you really don't need to chase a need. The alternative would be, does Ashton Genty become more realistic if they sign Tyron Smith?
That's what the emailer, that was the case the emailer made.
Okay.
Yeah, take Ashton Genty.
I mean, there's an argument there.
There's an argument. I just look at before we even get to the repercussions on the draft.
Yeah.
I just look at what they've done so far in free agency, and that's the one spot where they don't have an answer.
Right. But does he want to come here? That's why they haven't gotten any left tackles.
Yeah.
It's not guys that want to come here. If it's Hunter Carter gone, phone not ringing, 4, Tyron Smith is here, who's your pick?
Carter Hunter gone, and Tyron Smith is here.
Yeah. Is it still Will Campbell and you're playing him at left guard? Is it Tet McMillan to add to the receiver room? Is it Membu at guard? You're moving him to right tackle next year? Is Genty more in play now? Is Tyler Warren more in play now? Jalen Walker?
I would steer towards Campbell still. I think that they might go for one of those Georgia guys. And they might go for defense to really put the cherry on top of the defense, right? And really complete it. At least in their eyes, right? With a Jalen Walker or something like that.
So you would take Campbell and play him at left guard?
Yeah, that's what.
Because if you're taking him there, you're playing him, and then the idea is he's kicking out next year.
Yep.
At that point, I don't know if I'd do it. I'd have a long look at Ashton Genty, man. At that point.
Oh, you already are having a long look at
I think, honestly, I think I might go McMillan in that situation. Because now you're like really putting that wide receiver room together. You're giving Drake May a target. He can grow within the long term. And maybe McMillan doesn't have quite the ceiling of a guy you usually take up there, but I guess you're still going to have to go left tackle next year in the draft. But like if you take McMillan there and he becomes your T. Higgins, and next year you draft the Jamar Chase, you're really you're in great shape. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Well, I'm still not taking Genty, but I hear what you're saying.
I said I'd have a long look. I didn't say I'd take him, but I'd have a long look.
That's a nice cop out. All right, Robin.
I just said I might take McMillan.
Robin the Catskills has a question about Charles Grant from William and Mary.
Yeah.
Who I watched recently. He's kind of the middle round, high upside tackle prospect, right? Like raw, really toolsy. You can see the athleticism, you can see the movement skills and the range at the position right when you turn on the tape. He's one of those guys, played at a lower level at William and Mary. With all those guys, I always say the same thing. When you turn on the tape, do you know who you're watching? Are you automatically like, that's the guy that's going to be an NFL player? Because he's obviously not playing with other NFL players on the field. So there's one guy that belongs in the league, and if he doesn't move like that and he doesn't displace defenders in terms of blocking, if he doesn't have the play strength and the athleticism that just are separating him from the rest of the guys on the field, then he's not the guy. I did think I saw that with Charles Grant. Now, with that being said, his pass sets need to be completely reworked from the ground up. He is a total project in pass protection. He's a kind of like a segmented, just like clunky mover and pass protection. But he also is, baited easily out of his leverage, with fakes and stutters and things like that, has hand placement issues, footwork issues. He's got a long way to go as a pass protector. He's a true project. You're taking this guy to develop him over a 2 or 3 year period. Not an answer right away at left tackle. But that being said, when you get past that Connerly, Simmons, Ursery tier, if you want to throw Kelvin Banks in there, when you get past that tier, you're at like Anthony Belton and Charles Grant. Like that's like the next tier of true left tackles, probably in the 3rd or 4th round. So I see some upside there. I see some potential there, but certainly not a long-term answer at that position, or not a day one answer, I should say, at that position. So let's get back to the phones, and we'll wrap it up here. A few more thoughts on some pro day stuff, but let's get back to the phones. Craig is in South Carolina. What's up, Craig?
Hello?
Hey, go. You're on the air. What's up?
Yeah, you can hear me? Okay, cool. Let me turn up my sound here. Sorry. Anyways, God, I am just so excited about getting Stefon Diggs. And have you actually, for one, I agree with what you said, Evan, on he elevates the receiving room immensely. And have you seen his workouts? I mean, how much weight he's actually putting on that knee? It just blew my mind. I'm like, man, this guy's going to be ready to go. So I know you guys are hypothetical on whether he'll be ready to go, but I think, man, it's going to be something amazing and to watch and totally change the team. But I coached football for 5 years, so this is how I fulfill my need now that I'm not coaching. Listening to Evan and his breakdown has been amazing. But one thing about Bill Belichick is whenever he couldn't defend someone, he would make a big effort and go out and get him. Like Milton Williams, there's a guy that pretty much really hard to defend. Same thing with Stefon Diggs. But I liked your take on the Tyron Smith. I think we need to go grab him right away. But anyways, that's all I got.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks for the call. It's exciting, and I was texting you about this before the show. I don't know if he'll be healthy for training camp.
Yeah.
But if he is, I'm just really looking forward to seeing him practice because we cover camps, and I'm not trying to throw shade at the receivers that we've covered, but it's not exactly been Stefon Diggs, right? Like we haven't really seen that. The one time I saw it was Devontae Adams in Vegas, right, when we had the joint practices. A.J. Brown last year when he came for the joint practices with Philadelphia. But to see a guy of that caliber practice day in and day out, I think would be a great just for entertainment purposes, but also great just for understanding what it looks like.
Yeah.
Like in a practice of like, this is what an elite receiver looks like on the practice field. I hope that we get to see that at least a little bit, maybe towards the end of training camp. All right, this is a big one. We gotta go to Big E. Eldred, you got a receiver, man. Do you like it? What do you think? There we go.
There you go.
Hey, fellas, how y'all doing?
Hey.
Yeah, I like Diggs. I wanted Diggs when he tried to leave Minnesota and Brady, just a text or whatever, and Belichick wouldn't take him in 18. Buffalo got him after that, and he whooped our ass every year. So I wanted him back then. But question, something I heard on the radio, Evan and Barth. Let's say Travis Hunter is right there at 4. You right there. Dallas come up to you. Say they give you their number one. They won this year, 1 next year, a 2 this year, and a 3-4 next year to get Travis Hunter. Would you do it?
It's a good question, Eldred. Thanks for the call, and I'm glad we finally got a receiver for Eldred.
Yeah.
Eldred's been calling in about.
There's some extra in that hunt.
Yeah, since I got here, and I'm sure even before that, I know he's a big DK guy, so that's all the way back to 19. I would not do that for Travis Hunter. I don't think, just because to me it marries up way too well with need and player and talent and all that stuff.
You're getting a future first. I'd see if I could switch those secondary picks, get a future second and a third this year. You get 2 extra. I don't think Cowboys are going to be very good this year. You get 2 extra top 50 picks next year in a much better draft. You're still going to be able to get a solid player at 12. Like if you can get Matthew Golden at 12, and then you have 2 first-round picks next year. That's tantalizing, man.
It's exciting. It's intriguing, I should say. So is pairing Travis Hunter and Drake May for the next decade.
That's true.
Right?
But what if it's like Kendrick Law next year? I'm just pulling names. I really haven't done that much info on these guys, but like Carnell Tate next year from Ohio State, and it's that guy. And
I would do it for Abdul Carter. I think they have enough on defense. Yes, Abdul Carter would be the finishing piece, and that would be.
You have to get a haul to trade Abdul Carter, but like if somebody's going to give you a haul, you get a haul.
If it's Abdul Carter at 4, and I said this over the weekend, was the other thing that got me chirped on the internet. If it's Abdul Carter at 4, and somebody offers you that's the Will Anderson trade package, which I think was my take, by the way. So Will Anderson trade package. To move down to, let's say, the 10 to 12 range, and you get all the stuff that Eldred said. I think the Patriots have to seriously consider doing that, because I think they could play a game tomorrow with Mike Vrabel coaching them up and have a pretty good defense.
Yeah.
Now, Abdul Carter would maybe take it from good to great. I'll allow for that. But I think that you would have invested heavily. Now, Diggs, it doesn't change it, but it kind of changes the take a little bit. But you've invested so heavily on the defensive side of the ball all offseason that I think that you have enough on that side of the ball to be competitive. If you traded down and you got the haul, which is the big part of it, right? And then you were able to still take a tackle or a receiver at, let's say, 10 with the Chicago Bears or 12 with the Dallas Cowboys or whatever the case may be, I would strongly consider that one. Travis Hunter makes it a little bit harder just because of the position, but I think you have to consider it as a team like the Patriots that have a lot of holes still.
And again, there's future drafts, right? You have a future pick next year. You can still get back in the top 5 without having to actually have a record indicative of a top 5 pick, right? You have all the same ammunition to move up and move around in a better draft. Like, don't lose sight of that. There's more rounds beyond the first round this year, and there's more drafts beyond this draft. Having 2 first-round – I don't remember. When's the last time the Patriots had 2 first-round – oh, I guess it would have been 18. They kind of blew that one. But before that, Chandler Jones, Dante Hightower, right? Or you can move up and really shoot up the board there. Maybe you push your chips a little more down the road. And now, dare I say, we're talking about Jeremiah Smith. Like, having 2 first-round picks can be incredibly, incredibly valuable. Do not sleep on what that does for the long-term outlook of the franchise. This is what we were talking about back before that Buffalo game, right? This is what I said about falling from 1 to 4. I don't think it really impacts their offseason this year, because if they're going to take Carter at 4, or they're going to take Hunter at 4, like if they're going to take Carter Hunter at 1, they still very well might have a shot to take that guy at 4. The difference is you could say, well, if we move back to 3, we'll still get one of those guys, and we'll get a future first for next year. That's where winning that game against Buffalo changes things, is you lose that ability to pick up the future first. You still can maybe do that, but if you do it, you're punting on Hunter or Carter.
So the other...
or Hunter and Carter, I should say.
Really quickly about the draft capital that comes from that trade down. Don't sleep on the fact that you can trade those picks for a player.
That too.
Right? Like, so let's say next offseason, you can swing that big receiver trade with the extra draft capital.
And you still have a first-round pick.
Right. So, like that, I look at it and not necessarily about being able to move around the board. I look at it as being able to move that pick for a veteran player.
Flexibility.
Yeah.
It's all about flexibility.
Yeah, exactly. I think you do have to think about it. Jeff is in Virginia. What's up, Jeff?
But it has to be a haul. You're not just trading Abdul Carter to move back 2 spots and pick up a second. Sorry, go ahead.
First-time caller, long-time listener. Love the show.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
You guys just talked about trading for players, and we keep talking about a stopgap at left tackle. The Chargers haven't extended Slater yet, and they just drafted Joe Alt. Why are we not offering them a crap ton of picks for him? They move Alt to left tackle. They draft a right tackle. We got our left tackle for the next 5 years, make him a highest-paid guy. Do you guys think that would be a good option to just solve our left tackle issue? And what would you be willing to trade? Is it 4? Is it 38 plus a future first? Is it the Tunsil trade plus some? Anyway, I'll take it off the air. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jeff. I would take Rashawn Slater in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I don't think that's happening.
No, they're going to pay him. There's teams aren't like, we just went through this, right? And they might take it down to the wire like the Ravens did with Stanley. Teams, especially a team like the Chargers that wants to win at the line of scrimmage above all else. They're not letting Rashawn Slater go. They're going to pay him hypothetically. Can you switch? Can you flip 4 for him? I'd probably do that outright. You know, would you trade your second, third, and fourth round pick for him? I might do that. I'm hesitant. I'd probably go future first. I'm kind of hesitant to trade future picks in this draft. I don't think you're going to see a lot of future picks move because teams aren't going to borrow from the future for a weaker draft. But the Chargers are nuts if they trade Slater. Even getting a right tackle is hard enough. So even if you're going to move Alt over, that still creates a major hole at a position that's tough to fill. You pay tackles. It's what you do. They took all those receivers off the books. They took a couple of their big paid defensive players off the books in Bosa and in Mack. Derwin James is getting up there. They're going to get out of that contract soon. A lot of their team's going to be on rookie deals besides Herbert. They can pay, and they should pay Rashawn Slater.
I don't see Jim Harbaugh giving up his trenches.
No.
I don't see that. I don't necessarily think it would take 4 to get Rashawn Slater just because we've seen time and time again when a player needs to get paid, there's a tax in the trade for that in the NFL. Where, you know, if the team that's acquiring that player that also needs to give him a mega extension, we just saw this happen with DK Metcalf. I think you get a little bit less than what you would get normally if the player was under contract for, you know, a longer period of term. So I don't know if it would take 4. I think the Laramie Tunsil trade is probably a framework of where teams would probably start with Rashawn Slater. But I would love the player. I don't see the Chargers doing it.
I don't think it's happening.
All right, let's take this last call, and then I want to get to one last thing here before we wrap it. But
kickoff change rules?
Rio is in Texas. What's up, Rio?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Yep.
So I want to bring up a point and then ask a question. The point I want to bring up is as far as the two teams drafting ahead of the Patriots that potentially be looking at a quarterback, Arch Manning has to come into the conversation, right? As far as why they're not going to look at Shedeur Sanders. Because
yes and no.
He can be the prize.
He's
out.
Yeah,
Wait, he had
thanks,
another question.
Oh, do you have another question?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
And then my question is, as far as this draft goes, who's the prospect? Because I don't like the top of this draft. I said that last week. I've kind of dubbed it like the island of misfit toys. All these guys have problems. So who's the guy in later rounds of the draft, you know, after the first day, that you think has potential to be the best player at his position in, say, 3 years?
Yeah, good question. To the first point, thanks for the call, Rio. I don't know if we've seen enough of Arch Manning for me to sit here and say
Arch Manning's Texas going with
Quinn Ewers.
No, who's the Malik? When he got hurt last year, 2 years ago, and they were making a playoff push. When Ewers got hurt, they could have gone to Manning, and they went to Malik Murphy instead, who was also a true freshman, so it wasn't an experienced thing. Like, they told you they didn't think Arch Manning was ready. That was 2 years ago, but I'm not as gaga over Arch Manning as everybody else. It's also, if we talked about this earlier, the Giants coaches, the Browns coaches that are betting on their jobs, it's tough to go to the owner and say, sorry we went 3-13 again, but Arch Manning will be the ant. Like, you can't.
I just don't think we have enough film on Arch Manning yet to say that he is. This is not underclassman Trevor Lawrence, underclassman Andrew Luck. Like, this isn't one of those guys where you have a full season of tape out on him already, where we're sitting here and saying, you know, underclassman Caleb Williams, right? He wins the Heisman Trophy as a true sophomore. Like, we're not there yet, I don't think, with Arch Manning. To his second question, kind of segues into my last thing here that I.
So I was gonna say, do running backs count here? Because obviously they just don't go in the first round.
He's gonna segue into it. Don't worry. Right. So Alexander emailed in, and he said that he loves the show, thank you, and loves the draft coverage, thank you. But the one thing that he says that he is missing is we haven't done recency bias in a while.
We haven't. I know. I wish we did.
We've had a lot of news and stuff like that to talk about, so we haven't done it. We only have 7 minutes, but I wanted to do a little bit of recency bias. I have recently gone through the top 15 running backs in this draft. I want to say consensus, right? You know, I always put the consensus board up and go right down the consensus board. So I have a pretty good feel, at least of the top in the middle of this running back class. If I had to guess to answer Rio's question, who would be the best player available on day 2, or who could be the eventual best player, I think it will be a running back.
Yep.
And there's a couple guys that I particularly enjoyed watching that we can get to here in terms of recency bias. But would you agree with that? It's either going to be a pass rusher or it's going to be a running back.
Yeah, those are the two best positions in this draft. Maybe a safety. Like if Makuba falls, maybe a safety. But
all right, so let's get to some of the running backs here for the last 7 minutes. It's a little bit of recency bias. So I'll just read off my top 5. I have this pretty locked in now. I feel good about it. I went pretty consensus at the top.
Yeah.
Ashton Dentry 1, Amar and Hampton 2.
Yep.
But I didn't. Hampton's interesting though. Like he's. I think Hampton teams are going to love him because he's just well-rounded and he projects to have a high-volume role. I didn't think that he was super dynamic, like in the open field. Like he's more of like a power back, between the tackles. But there's such a nice role projection for him. Of a floor of what he could be. So Genty Hampton 1, 2.
Yep.
I had Trayvon Henderson at 3, and Quinshawn Junkins at 4. I know you. I believe you, at least.
Yeah, I like it's close, but I like Judkins
you flipped
better.
those two. A lot of people flip those two.
It's a flavor thing. Like I think Judkins is more of like a home run hitter. Henderson's more of like a well-rounded. You're going to give him more of a volume role, I think.
So Judkins, I think he runs angrier. Like he runs with
he's bigger.
He runs with a little bit more power and a little bit more finish to his game. But the reason why I like Henderson a little bit better is he's a little looser. Right? He moves a little bit smoother. He's a little bit more explosive, if you ask me. Got a little bit more top end speed. I don't think that he's as good. He's probably like, we always talk about tiers, like day 1 version, day 2 version. Trayvon Henderson reminds me a little bit of Jahmyr Gibbs. Like I would say day 2 Jahmyr Gibbs.
Okay.
Not quite as good as Gibbs, but in terms of the big playability and the explosiveness, both as a pass catcher and a running back, as a ball carrier, that's how he reminds me. I think Judkins is more linear. Like he's a little bit more of a stiffer athlete that's going to get downhill and run people over with speed to power. Whereas I think Henderson's loose. Like Henderson's
I think you're underrating Judkins' agility a little bit, but yeah, Henderson's better in that regard.
So Genty, Hampton, Henderson, Judkins. I think that's the clear top 4 in some order for pretty much everybody.
I think some people have Caleb Johnson up there.
Okay.
There's some people that really like Caleb Johnson.
So I had Dylan Sampson from Tennessee next.
Okay.
I love Dylan Sampson. I think that guy's a baller. Again, I think you can tell. I kind of have a type, same with receivers.
And he met with Patriots, by the way.
Sampson. I like explosive guys. I like guys that can cut and go. I like guys that can hit big plays. The difference that I saw was Sampson and Johnson. I thought Sampson was much better between the tackles in terms of vision and in elusiveness and jump cut ability between the tackles. He's one of those guys that can snake through the line of scrimmage and then hit the ground running once he gets to daylight.
He's also running into a lot of like 5-6 man boxes with Tennessee's offense.
That's fair. But I just saw a little bit more of that efficiency. Let's get on a track. Let's jump cut out of a tackle.
He's definitely looser than Johnson is.
With Caleb Johnson, Caleb Johnson's DeMarco Murray 2.0, right? Like he's one of those guys.
Nice pull, DeMarco Murray.
That is off tackle, toss, stretch, runs really high, like runs too high probably, but like makes it work. And when you get him out into runways and into space, he's off to the races, right?
Yeah.
Like that's his game. He's a zone runner. He's very good at it. But to me, what I saw with Caleb Johnson was a lot of runs in space. Like you're just tossing it out to him or you're getting him out on the edge. Those guys worry me a little bit, just projecting to the NFL because there's a lot more condensed space once you get to the league than when there is in college.
You can't run to the wide hash and get, all that room on the outside.
Right. Whereas with Sampson, I saw a little bit more of that make-miss talent in trash, like in the middle of the field, which I liked a little bit better. But I think Caleb Johnson's a good player too. I think I texted you.
So did you have him 5 or did you have Scatabo 5?
I had him 6. So I have Genty, Hampton, Henderson, Judkins, Sampson, Johnson. Lots of names.
And then Scatabo?
Then I have Devin Neal from Kansas.
Wow, okay.
I'll get to Scatabo in a second. I know we got to go quickly here though.
Yeah.
I really just like Devin Neal's game for the NFL. Again, same kind of thing. Great contact balance, great power behind his pads.
Yeah.
Great. He's going to be able to handle a high volume between the tackles. He's going to be an early down workhorse for a team in the NFL. I just think that he really translates nicely to a high volume role. Cam Scatabo. My concern with Cam, he's next. Cam Scatabo, my concern with him is kind of coupled together playing style of shelf life. right? Like, is he going to be a bowling ball like that at the NFL level and be breaking tackles like he was doing at the college level? And if he does wear contact and have to break tackles like that at the NFL level, like, how long is that going to last? Like,
and he's an older guy.
Yeah, like, he can't play like that forever.
I think he can. I mean, I think he can be a contributor. I just don't know. Like, contact aside, he's kind of maxed out physically.
Yeah.
Because he's an older prospect. He's a spellback. I keep going back, like, isn't he kind of just a more physical Rex Burkhead? Because he can catch. That's the most underrated part of his game. Like, he can play in the passing game. So he's going to be able to split between that early down and passing down role, but he brings an edge. I know it's a lazy comp, but I think he's like a more physical. I've compared a bunch of backs in this draft to Rex Burkhead.
So I just look
at there's a lot of backs in this draft that are well-rounded, that do everything well.
If you put Scadaboo in a vacuum and you just say, grade this player based off the tape, he would be much higher than this on my list. He'd probably be, RB5 on this list. I just look at it, though, when you project it into the NFL, like how much shelf life and longevity is he going to have playing like that? Is his top end speed and all that stuff going to be a factor? Like, he doesn't really get away from anybody.
Yeah,
right?
But he's a spellback. That's not a guy that you're
I worry about
for big explosive runs.
Really quickly, really liked RJ Harvey from UCF as well. Another one, kind of similar to Samson, like, kind of a late day 2, mid day 3 Samson, right? Guy that can really scoot and really make guys miss. Good class. I had 13 guys in this class with a higher grade than anybody last year. My highest graded running back last year was Blake Corum. I have 13 guys ahead of Blake Corum.
It's a good draft.
So very good class at running back. So that's a little recency bias for you on the running backs. Doing tight ends as well right now, finishing those guys up. I did like Harold Fandon a lot. I did like him.
I don't know how to feel about Harold Fandon.
He's a weird player. Like, he's got 6'3", 240. Obviously played at Bowling Green. That's Mac.
That is the Mac.
Yeah, but he had great tape against Penn State, so it's not like he just did it.
Yeah, and against A&M, he reminds me a lot of Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, I agree.
And we saw what Jonnu Smith did in Josh McDaniels' offense.
Confidence. It's important to have when you're on the road with Bridgestone tires on your car, truck, SUV, or minivan. You are riding on your tires you can trust. Bridgestone tires are engineered to give you peace of mind so you can focus on enjoying the journey. So whether you're on your morning commute, a cross-country road trip, or a relaxing Sunday drive, Bridgestone tires will be with you wherever life's roads may lead. Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. Available now at Sullivan Tire. That was a fun one. We appreciate everybody calling and emailing in tons of calls and emails. We tried to get to as many as we could. Stefon Diggs is reportedly a Patriot. That was an exciting show. We'll be back next week, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about the draft and pro days as we gear up here inside of a month until the draft. So thanks so much for watching and listening. For Alex Barth, I'm Evan Lazar. We'll see you guys next week.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.